Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Friday edition of the Rodcast. Texas OU week 604, and OU still sucks and always will. We like to call it a freak flag, feel good, fake it till you make it. Ric Flair, woo! Football 512 State Fair Street Fight Friday edition of the Rodcast. That's right, we got a lot of them in there, but it is a special week, and of course, we're excited to talk about Texas, Oklahoma. We'll continue to preview it, break it down. I think we've hit every different angle you can of this matchup. We'll give you all the details and give you all of the X factors coming up here today, all throughout the show. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian. He had his media availability yesterday. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian. My man Patrick broke that audio down for you, so we'll hear from the head coach. We'll also talk NFL. We got to get into some NFL discussion. We'll preview Texans versus the Patriots. The Cowboys got a big game coming up versus the Lions. Things are not looking good for the Dallas Cowboys. They are a mash unit right now. Injuries continue to pile up. We'll discuss that. We'll also talk about the game last night. 49ers get back on the winning track. We'll get into that matchup a little bit. We'll also talk about some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets and topics, and some of the big college football games coming up this weekend. And there are a bunch of doozies, some big ones. So we'll get into that. Before we do, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. He's got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It's Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Ready to kick it off on a Friday, and I'm excited.
Sir.
I'm excited. I know not everybody is, that it's a 2:30 game this week.
I agree.
I know that there is some traditionalists in there that's want it to be the 11 a.m. game, and it should be the 11 a.m. game, and they're all on board on that. There's some people who want the night game. The night game, and I don't really want that either. 2:30 feels right for this game.
Just right, huh?
It feels right for me in this game.
Yeah,
it's not 11 a.m., so I can get properly hyped for the game.
Yeah,
it's 11 a.m. It's hard to
crack of dawn.
Well, because it's just hard to get hyped at 11 a.m. because then you feel kind of weird. You can't even crack a beer at 11 a.m. I mean, you can.
You can. Oh, no. What do you mean?
You can.
People do it all the time.
If I'm at my house, it feels worse if I do it, crack a beer at 11. So you're just like, normally I get together. If I'm getting friends or anything, we'll hang out at the 2:30 games. We'll watch the 11 into home, and then you go watch the second round of games. So I like the 2:30 game. I'm a fan of it.
I will. I'm with you. I agree with that.
I mean, I'm excited that we get to see that as well, because it has been too many games that's at 11 a.m.
I might have played in the later one, but I don't know. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't like the 11 a.m. games,
and I think there's
like because you have the rest of your day after the game is over to watch stuff.
It's like our job right now.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why I hate I don't really like the late games because of our job. Yes, it kind of dominates the whole day for you.
It does. I mean, I like the late game, and now Texas Georgia needs to be a night game.
Oh, it's going to be a night game.
It is. I believe it's 6:15, but it needs to be. Like, I get that one completely. We looked at the weather yesterday
because the hype is worth it. It's worth the hype to build up. Sometimes it's like, well, Texas OU actually is too. But I'm with you. I don't want that game late for when I go, because I go to the game sometimes. I don't want to go to a late Texas OU.
No, and I too. That's like that also could be dangerous. But the Texas Georgia too. It's like we looked at the weather, and next week it looks like we may get a little piece of fall hitting sometime next week, and get the weather a little bit cooler, which would make it
What's
great.
the weather like for Texas OU? And it's supposed to be nice, but not fall.
But it'll be in the 90s.
A little warm, a little warm.
It'll be in the 90s.
Texas warms,
So
Texas
it's not.
Fall.
It'll be Texas fall. It will not be. I think the high I looked at next week at Wednesday said 83.
Ooh, that would be nice.
So you get there, maybe bring a little jacket to the game for the night, the second half.
Jacket?
No, for the Georgia game next week.
That's what I'm saying. I said a light jacket. That's rare. Man, we haven't had to break out the light jacket.
So it could be a fun time, but I'm enjoying the 2:30 start. I know some of you guys on the text line maybe you all want it to be 2:30. Maybe some of you want it to be 7, but I'm enjoying the 2:30 start because give me proper time to get hyped up for this game and be ready for it in a game where Texas is a 14.5-point favorite right now. The line didn't move, Rod.
Well, remember we said that was just one line, and then everybody else decided to make that the line.
Yeah.
Remember?
So we
was it FanDuel? That was the only one with that line?
So what I think it was the other ones weren't released yet or weren't really on the books yet, and so they said that was 8, but I don't know if they were out because everyone didn't jump to 14. So I don't know what it is, but everyone is at 14 and a half. That is I thought it would have moved a little bit. It's not really moved much.
No, because they looked at Oklahoma's offense. Look at Oklahoma's offense, and they don't move much either. they don't move much either, Patrick. So that's why I think
There.
people are like, I don't know how the hell they're gonna beat Texas. Like nobody can visualize how they're gonna move the football.
No,
Like I
I
can't.
they can move it just east and west.
Sideline to sideline.
And
Yeah.
hey, Texas does their job. They'll be moving backwards too.
Yeah. I really trust me, guys. I try to reverse engineer everything and try to come up with the most ideal situation for the opposing team, put myself in their shoes. How can they be? I know Texas better than anybody else, so I can easily look at their team strengths and weaknesses and go, all right, this is how I would beat Texas if I was them. And I can't figure it out. I've gotten some ideas, but I can't. Nothing that to me was going to work consistently for 4 quarters.
Yeah.
It may work for a play or two. I don't know if it's going to work for 4 quarters against Texas. So I can't wait to see what they come up with.
We'll see. Let me first introduce my co-host. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod Father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I appreciate the intro, brother. And yes, we'll have all your usual favorites on the show. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain, of course. Basically, the whole show is a version of behind the burnt orange curtain, talking Texas OU. But we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian when we go behind the burnt orange curtain, specifically talking about that matchup. We'll also have your usual favorites. Who said that? What the facts? What the stats? We got off the record. We have the topic for the big fat poll of the day. So we are loaded on a Friday edition of the show, and of course, tons of conversation about our NFL headlines as well, and the big games coming up this weekend. So we'll talk Cowboys and we'll talk Texans and talk about the game last night. So we'll do that when we first get off to the Horn headlines. So first, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis in the Horn headlines. And we'll come back and talk about the 49ers back on the winning track. But first, the Horn headlines with Patrick Davis.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB playoffs, the Yankees advanced to the ALCS with a 3-1 win over the Royals last night. Garrett Cole pitched 7 innings, allowing 1 run, and Giancarlo Stanton continued his hot streak with another RBI in the game. The Guardians got a 5-4 win over the Tigers to force a deciding Game 5 on Saturday. David Fry came in to pinch hit in the 7th and swung the game with 3 RBIs in his 2 at-bats. Tonight, the Padres and Dodgers finished their series in a Game 5 with Yu Darvish facing Yoshi Yamamoto. In college football, some big games of the week include number 9 Ole Miss at number 13 LSU, number 4 Penn State taking on USC, number 2 Ohio State against number 3 Oregon, and of course, number 1 Texas and number 18 Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. Coach Sark officially stated that Quinn Ewers would start the game for the Longhorns after missing the last few weeks due to an abdominal injury. Kickoff is at 2:30 at the Cotton Bowl. And in the NFL, the 49ers regained their lead in the NFC West with a 36-24 win over the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football. Seattle fought back in the second half from down 20 to down 6 with the ball when Geno Smith threw his second interception of the game to help seal the deal for the 49ers. This weekend, the Texans travel to New England to take on the Patriots with Drake May getting his first start, and the Cowboys face the Lions with Dallas still dealing with a number of injuries on the defensive line. And that is your Horn headlines.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Yeah, the 49ers came really close again. I don't know what it is about the 49ers. They've done this twice already this season where they've blown double-digit leads in the second half, and they were very close to blowing a third double-digit lead in the second half, but they held on. That 23-3 lead dissipated quickly. I will say, watching the first kickoff return, at least the one that I've seen, I think there's been one this year, a kickoff return for a touchdown with the new formats. But watching the kickoff return for a touchdown was cool. I hadn't seen that in the new format, 97-yard kickoff return. That's what sparked the comeback. They were down 23-3.
Yes.
And the 49ers were getting ready to blow, they had already blown the game wide open. They were going to run away with it. And that kickoff return gave them a spark. Seattle had that 13-play, 94-yard touchdown drive. And then they were right back in it. And then the 49ers made enough plays, clutch plays down the stretch to close it out. And, man, there was an interception by Renardo Green and that 76-yard run by Isaac Guarendo. How you say Guarendo? I'm sure
you better learn it because they got another one.
I know. We talked about this before because, unfortunately, the 49ers got to figure out what's going on with Jordan Mason. He left the game with a shoulder injury and did not return. So, man, this is their fourth string running back that they're on now, I believe, with Isaac Guarendo, because they had Mitchell, or obviously Christian McCaffrey, Mitchell, Jordan Mason was the third string running back.
I thought Mitchell
I
was.
believe.
I thought Jordan Mason was second, but I could be wrong.
Oh, what about Christian McCaffrey though?
Yeah, second string. But I thought Chris McCaffrey was first string, and then Jordan Mason was second string.
They had another kid, Mitchell, though, that got hurt too earlier this year, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
they
thought
had
Jordan Mason was
another-
the one that came in for a week one.
Yeah, Jordan Mason. Yeah, but I thought they had
So
two
they had
injuries to running
preseason.
backs.
Okay.
Yes.
They got that. Okay.
Yes,
I
if
could
I'm
be.
not mistaken.
I'll trust you on that
Yeah.
one. I
Yeah.
don't remember, but yeah, I remember that he came in that first game. But yeah, they clearly there's been injuries before week one.
Yeah, no, the 49. I mean, it's mounting up for everybody. The 49ers are, I mean, they're one of the teams, but the Texans are starting to get some injuries. Cowboys are starting to get some of those injuries. So things are starting to, you got to have depth. There's no doubt about that in this league. But the 49ers, they're not as dominant as they were because of some of the injuries too. I think it's a real opportunity in the NFC right now for a team, to make a move. I'm not saying it's going to be the Cowboys because they're not in that position right now. But Detroit might be in that position to make a move in the NFC. I still think the 49ers could be the team to beat, but if they don't get healthy, who knows what's up with Christian McCaffrey? I think there's an opening there. Not sure who's going to take it. It could be, like I said, it could be Detroit. That could be that team that wants to take that spot. The NFC East, I would have thought it would have been Philly or Dallas, but right now it's like Washington is that team. So I'm not sure who in the NFC, because who's the most dominant team in the NFC right now, the most impressive team. Obviously Minnesota is, but do we believe that Minnesota is for real? Sam Darnold is for real. They look like it. And that's the real question, because right now the 49ers got some problems, not just the injuries, but their red zone offense. Even though last night they figured some things out, they came into that game with the 29th ranked red zone offense. They got some problems there. I still think they're figuring out really offensively how that offense is going to operate now, trying to funnel enough usage to Debo and Brandon Ayuk too. Brock Purdy looks like he's improving and getting better. But the 49ers don't look as dominant right now as they have in the past. I wonder if they can get back to the Super Bowl. But I say that, and I said that about the Kansas City Chiefs too, that they don't look as dominant. Matter of fact, we'll get to see those two teams face off. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I believe that's the next game for the 49ers. Is it not, the Kansas City Chiefs?
It could be
coming up. Yeah, that's coming up pretty soon too. So it's 49ers. I'm obviously rooting for them. That's my boy Shano. Love to see them back on the winning track, but man, they're having trouble closing out games. I think a lot of that is because of the red zone offense and then the injuries. Like I said, they're starting. Charvarius Ward was out for that game. Hufanga, the all-pro safety, was out for that game. So they've got some injuries they got to figure out too.
No, I mean, but if you want to look at the positive, Brock Purdy now is a scrambler.
He looks good too, scrambling.
Yeah, just add another piece, and he's just picking up those first downs. And he only had 19 yards scrambling, but it was first downs. It's pretty much every time he ran, it was a first down. It was, he knew that, all right, it's 3rd and 4, get the 4 yards, just get down, and you'll be good. That's adding that element to his game gives him another piece, especially while Christian McCaffrey's still out. But I think, once you get Christian McCaffrey back, you can then kind of try to take back that stranglehold. But right now, it seems like it's the NFC North. Somebody out of there is going to be pushing for it.
Yeah, if the Packers figure some things out,
because Jordan Love missed some games that they lost.
Yeah.
So if you say Jordan Love comes back and they look better, Minnesota, they look great right now, but we don't know if it's
nobody wants to believe it. I know. Even when you're thinking about it, you're like, who's the dominant team? It's like, well, Minnesota's in the fitness. Like, but they're a but team right now.
They are.
They're
it's too as good as Brian Flores' defense is. There's always this part of, can a scheme work for 20 games?
Yeah.
Because usually in the NFL, with the best minds in football and all these people just going over it, and every team now can have 2 or 3 people that they specifically have figure out, we're playing the Vikings in 3 weeks, figure out that Brian Flores defense, figure out what we got to do. Yeah. We can have that. Somebody starts figuring out, and once one team figures it out, everyone can copy the model.
It's a copycat league.
And so for 20 weeks for that to work, for them to make it to the Super Bowl, that seems difficult.
But if Sam Darnold keeps playing like this,
he does.
He's playing right now like a top 5 quarterback. But
20 weeks again. It's all about that. Can you do consistency? Can we do it for 20? Was it actually 24 weeks, something like that? If you
what is more likely, Brian Flores' scheme holding up for 20 plus weeks, or Sam Darnold?
Oh, Brian Flores' scheme, 100%.
and you just said that's not very likely.
No,
I'm with you. I agree with you. They're a but team. It's a big Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Serena Williams size, Cardi B size, Megan Thee Stallion size butt for both.
I mean, that's what you see is the Patriots with the Chiefs. It's you have to have the scheme and the talent, and then you add in the consistency somewhere in there, and it works. And right now they have the scheme, but do they have the talent, or is it just all scheme?
I know. That's like I said, the NFC with the 49ers down, it could be like 4 or 5 different teams that make a move here. And Minnesota should be the team that we're all looking at. And yet, but.
No, we should be looking at the Commanders more.
You're right. I agree. I think I'm higher on the Commanders than you are.
Yeah.
But I still, you're right. We don't give the Commanders enough pride considering how well they're playing. We're not mentioning them enough as a team in NFC that's ready to take the step forward and leapfrog the 49ers. Because the 49ers at this point, I think they just look beatable. They look a lot more beatable than they have in the last few years. But so, like I said, so does Kansas City. I say that, and then in the fourth quarter, they figured out a way. But the Kansas City is a better fourth quarter team, and they're a better closer than and they have a closer in Patrick Mahomes, and the 49ers don't have that. So 49ers, it's still kind of up in the air in the fourth quarter. I think we're all confident Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs, they find a way to close. And so that's why I think there's a window in the NFC. Yeah. On the AFC, it's there's no window, man. It's nothing. It's just Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, because it's San Francisco. I mean, you look at like the end of the first half. There's no reason Seattle shouldn't have got that ball in the end zone.
Yeah,
there's no reason they shouldn't have got the ball in the end zone right there.
Yeah,
but they didn't. And if they hit that, then they're down 2 points, something like that when they go when they come to make their comeback. So there's just some problems. Geno Smith, of course, the 2 picks. There was a lot of things in there where the Seahawks kind of shot themselves in the foot. And so as good as the 49ers are still there, they still can run the football, but it just feels like they're not fully there right now. And it'll be if you get Christian McCaffrey back, does that kind of plug the holes? And now you can do ball control a little bit better. Back? And is he coming back? Is he the same player when he comes back?
Yeah. When is he coming back? That's a good. I'm with you. When does he come back? And then how does the offense now? Because you can't necessarily build the offensive identity around Christian McCaffrey coming back. You got to just.
And not only that, when he comes back, Christian McCaffrey's always been I'll play 95% of the snaps. I'll be in all the time because I make the defense have to look at me so much. Even if I'm a decoy, I'm one of the most valuable decoys in football. But how long can he play 95 snaps? Or do you have to start pulling him out the 95% of snaps? Or do you have to pull him out because he's just not going to take the wear and tear? Is he going to be on a pitch count for the rest of the season when he comes back because he's just getting older?
Yeah, probably should, honestly. Just because you want to make sure you have him for the playoffs. That's what matters the most. You want to have him for that playoff run. But, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure but the 49ers are on their 4th-string running back now. I believe Mason is the 3rd string.
I did look up Elijah Mitchell is on that roster, and he's hurt. So
because he's had a hamstring injury for like 2 years, so people kind of forgot about him.
Yeah.
But he was one of the projects they were depending on. And that ain't worked out either. They don't have any luck right now in injuries at the running back position. But with that system, it's one of the few systems that doesn't need a bell cow marquee elite running back. Patrick can go in there and average 4.5 yards per carry. I mean, that's the Shanahan system. Okay,
man,
I was on.
How many carries do I get? 4.5 yards? Everyone's a fumble. Everyone's a fumble.
Everyone's a fumble. Seriously, that's a great. That's what like, I'll get those 4.5 yards.
That hole's gonna be wide open till I break half the bones in my body when I get hit.
Oh man, that'd be a great. I don't know. Remember that show? Was it Bros versus
Joes? Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a great little thing if you could have. Hey, we're gonna run a Shanahan scheme for you. Get some NFL linemen and an NFL defensive front, and see how many yards you can get.
I feel like
the Shanahan system.
I may be making this up. I feel like Ricky Williams was on it and just ran over some guys.
I believe you're right. I believe it was like, can you tackle Ricky Williams?
Yeah,
something like that. I believe.
And they're like, I think I got him.
It sounds familiar. I don't know if that's an SNL skit or if it was us on the show. But you're right. I think you're right. No, it was honestly, I love the concept. It was a really cool concept, man. It just take it just regular old folks and see if they can kind of do what NFL elite NFL athletes
I played varsity for 2 years in high school. You're like, all right, here's Ricky Williams.
Right. And these dudes were like, they had this overinflated sense of their skill set. It's like, dude, you really thought you were gonna go out there and tackle? How do you think that was gonna go? Yeah. They should bring that back. They should bring that back, man. Bring that back.
I don't even think they can do the liability anymore.
Man, you make them sign a waiver. They do crazy stuff like that all the time on reality TV. People, dude, for 15 minutes of fame, you'd be surprised what people will do, and they will sign away their rights and sign away all types of stuff just so they can get on TV.
You know who's got to host it though? You know we got to get
who?
It's Antonio Brown's.
Oh man, you got to be on cable if Antonio Brown, the CT ESPN guy.
CTE versus Joe's.
That's what I know about him now. That's his. Isn't that like his official like Twitter handle, CT ESPN or something? I don't know if that's it, but I know that's like what he promotes. I don't even know why he promotes that, but like that's his thing.
Just get
CTE. He's basically mocking the fact that people think he has CTE.
Yeah,
I believe
we get him and Chandler Jones and.
Oh yeah, Pros versus Joes, not Bros. My bad. Okay. Pros versus Joes is the name of the show. Yeah, they got to bring that back, man. They got to bring that back. Had 5 seasons. Could you cover Jerry Rice? Could you survive Bill Romanowski tackling you? These were some of the episodes. No. Could you hit John Rocker? No, they got to bring this back. What happened? This is a successful concept. Come on, man. Y'all we're bringing back all these, these reboots. Why would they reboot this thing? Reboot this thing, man. Could you out Homer Bo Jackson? Come on now.
So it was.
Could you go one-on-one with Clyde Drexler?
Joe's trying to tackle Ricky Williams, out rebound Charles Oakley, and last one round the boxing ring with Arturo Gatti.
Oh, come on. Bring this back. What are we doing? This is quality television. That was quality TV right there, man. I'm sorry. That was a quality television show. I don't know why it ended.
Hey, man.
Come on.
We're going to put you in there. What do you got to survive? You got to survive disappointing Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, what would be some great ideas for the Pros versus Joes today? That would be good.
Send those into the text line. If you've got any suggestions for what you want to see on Pros versus Joes, the reboot that we don't have the money to start.
One round with Roy Jones Jr.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
That was great. One round with Roy Jones Jr. They even did Cordell Stewart slashes through the Joes. Oh man, this is good. I would love to see. Remember Andre Rison? Man, they had Andre Rison on here. Can anyone catch Andre Rison?
The catching Andre Rison is not like that's the one where you're like, okay, no, I don't stand a chance on that one. The tackle Ricky is like, no, that's how I get hurt.
No, that's how you break something. That's what the waiver's for. Yeah, Andre Rison thing. It's like, oh man, what do you strain a hammy or something?
You're like, so I got to catch him as he runs away. And you're like, oh, he ain't running away.
He ain't running. Yeah, Ricky did not. I bet he didn't make one move. He didn't make one move. He just kept running. Like, come on. This is a fixed target. Let's go. Me and you.
Jared Gibson. Yeah. Jared Gibson trying to do that. Baby Rhino.
Baby Rhino. That would be great too. That'd be awesome. Oh man. All right. There you go. Random idea. Didn't even know we would have a Pros versus Joes conversation. Got to be the first Pros versus Joes reference we've had on the show ever. Okay. I was on with the ladies from Fire the Cannon. Shout out to Rocky and to Fancy Boots. They do a great job. And I was on with the ladies, and I would recommend you go check out their show, Fire the Cannon. They do a great job on Texas Sports Unfiltered. Really good stuff. And I was on with them, and a question came up, and I thought it was an interesting conversation because I wasn't sure about it, and I hadn't pondered the question yet. Will Texas trail in this game at all?
Well, if they get the ball first, hopefully not.
Well, like I said, I don't know how Oklahoma's going to move the ball. So even if they don't get the ball first, Oklahoma gets it first. Does Texas trail? Texas hasn't, by the way, Texas has not trailed all season long. They have not 1 minute, not one play behind have they trailed in the game. So do they trail versus Oklahoma at any point? Or are they behind?
If I had to put money on it, I would say no.
I know. I feel like that's an arrogant take, but
it feels like if it is, it's 3-0 or something like that, where they just kind of march down the field doing the Mississippi State game plan and just kind of get yardage on you a little bit by a little bit. It's a 7-minute drive and they kick a field goal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what it feels
Yeah.
like it would be. Is like a
Or
3rd and
a
9.
kick return down. They get a kick return or punt return
Good field
early
position.
on.
Yeah.
They get some good field position. They kick a field goal that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was interesting. I hadn't thought about it. And I was like, well, Texas hadn't. Then I looked at it. I was like, Texas hadn't trailed this year for not one play. So right now I'm thinking that they won't in the game. But that is, like I said, that's something else that we can talk about because we'll get into it when we start previewing the Texas-Oklahoma matchup. I got a few other nuggets that I haven't necessarily gotten into this week, so we'll do that and review that when we start previewing this matchup. And we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian coming up next segment. He had his media availability yesterday, spoke to the media about the Texas-OU matchup. So as we preview, we'll also hear from the head coach and get his thoughts about what Oklahoma brings to the table. So we'll do that coming up next, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is time to go behind the burn orange curtain, talk some Texas, Oklahoma, and hear from the head coach, Steve Sarkisian, about this matchup. The first thing that Sark addressed, of course, was the health and status of his quarterback, Quinn Ewers, has been out with an injury for the last couple of games. And pretty much it was the worst kept secret in Austin, Texas. But here's Steve Sarkisian talking about revealing that Quinn's going to be his starting quarterback for the Texas, Oklahoma game.
Yeah, Quinn's going to start Saturday. I'm going to go backwards. That was the easy answer. um,
One of the things that I think it benefits Texas in this matchup and tremendously, I think is it does because of the experience now that Quinn has. You know, Sark, he gets into Quinn's first start in the Texas OU game, and now having started multiple games for Texas Oklahoma, that is a significant advantage. Since 1990, quarterbacks with more experience win over 70% of these games, and Quinn is that quarterback going up against the first true freshman ever to start for Oklahoma. In the Texas Oklahoma game, that's a wide gap in disparity in experience. Here's Sark talking about Quinn's first year against Oklahoma.
My first one was with Casey, and he's on the other team now. Yeah.
2021. So
yes.
About Quinn then.
Quinn's was a little unique in that he was coming off the injury, but I knew how much this game had meant to him growing up right in South Lake, and hadn't been to the game and sitting in the stands watching this game. My big thing for him was just relax and go have fun, and go play ball. And we had a pretty good team, and we were playing pretty good at that juncture of the season. And so I thought he did that. He had a heck of a game. I joked with him in the middle of the game. He threw one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen. He was trying to throw the ball away, and it kind of just fluttered in the air. And I actually thought it hit the wire from the TV camera but it didn't. So we're able, I think that's one thing Quinn and I are able to do that a lot of times doesn't get seen. Like, we're able to laugh things off. And I think that that's important for a guy like him, and really for Arch for that matter. Like, we're a very intense quarterback room, and we coach them hard, but we also have the ability to kind of laugh at ourselves and have fun with things. And that in and of itself, I think in games like this is really helpful when the intensity is so high around you, the emotions are so high around you. The quarterback has got to be that steady C. He has got to be that even keel guy that can remain calm and keep his poise and composure in the midst of all the intensity.
All right, there's Sark talking about the experience now that Quinn has and the advantage that that experience is going to give them in this matchup coming up versus Oklahoma. And you're going to need it because Oklahoma puts a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks. They're top 10 in the country in sacks. This is a havoc-minded defense, and I'm sure Sark's got a plan for how to handle the pressure that Oklahoma's going to bring in that pass rush. So here's Sark addressing that Oklahoma pass rush that has been one of the best in the country.
Yeah, they're a great pass rush team. I think one, they've got good players, and two, they've got good scheme, and then in three, they play hard. They play with really good effort. And so you put all three of those things together, they do a heck of a job of getting to the quarterback, and because of that, they do a heck of a job of creating havoc, which I think leads to the opportunistic defense that they have where they create turnovers. So a lot of what they do defensively starts up front. And that's kind of been a staple of Coach Venable's defenses throughout the years, regardless of the school he was at. It's always started up front, and this group's not much different than that. They do a heck of a job of creating pressure internally. They do a good job coming off the edge. They do a good job with their pressure packages and a variety of those that they have. So there's layers to what they do, and we know we've got a work cut out for us this week with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I think Brent Venables, at least a tendency that he'll be able to depend on going up against Sark, is that I can't see Sark changing his stripes in this game where he's going to try to run it early on, right? One thing you know about Sark, in big games, he throws the football. He wants to throw to open up the run, right? And he's been pass heavy in terms of pass rate in big matchups, in these nationally televised matchups. And so it seems like when he's in his creative bag, when his creative juices are flowing, he leans more toward the pass. And even this season, there's only been one game that was Arch's first start where you had a pass rate, early game, early down pass rate. So I'm talking about first and second down in the first half, right? So not really necessarily dictated by the situational circumstance of the game. That's mostly your script. Maybe he's got a 40-play script. Don't forget that guy. 40 plays. Right? It's basically the whole damn first. I'm sure he changes things up and tweaks things, but that's the script. So that's how deep the script goes. And the script is mostly heavy pass rate, really high pass rate. So you've had one game this season, And that was Arch's first start, not his second start, where you had an early game, early down pass rate below 60%. So this year, he's leaning heavily toward the pass in the early game, early downs, and in big games, he leans heavily toward the pass. Think about Alabama, those first two Alabama games. Think about when they played in the Big 12 championship. All right. Think about when they played Michigan. Right. Think about those big games and those. Hell, think about when they played Oklahoma and the pass rates early on. You know that about Sark. That's just, and I don't think he's going to change that. Now, he could ultimately break tendency and decide, no, we're going to run the football early on. And I think if he does that, Brent Venables will be celebrating because it means I ain't got to defend the pass. I don't have to defend all these weapons. You lean into your strength. Your identity is your strength, and the strength of this offense, the identity of it is the passing game. And I've been saying that since the offseason. You guys know that. And I think Sark, great minds think alike. So I think Sark agrees based on the numbers here. So, but that's for Venables, he knows that. He knows that Texas is going to have a high rate of passes on early downs in the first half. And he knows they're mostly going to be underneath passes. Right. He knows that they're not going to now. You think they're not going to throw the football downfield. But if you go look at, Quinn Ewers, Quinn Ewers has one of the highest rates of passes under 10 yards or 10 yards or less. And I think ultimately for Brent Venables, he will have his defenders be uber aggressive, and they'll be I think havoc minded, if you will, early on in that game, jumping some of those concepts like they did last year. Remember, they were so well prepared. They jumped a lot of concepts. And I don't know if Texas was prepared for them to jump as many concepts as they did early on, because they knew Texas is going to throw early on. And not only are they going to throw, but they're going to throw underneath. All right. A lot of short, quick game early on in the game. So I think that is, to me, that's something I wonder if Sark's going to break tendency there, because that is one of the few advantages that Brent Venables has, because everybody knows that. That's not a secret. And if you look at SEC quarterbacks with the lowest percentage of passes targeting 10 plus yards downfield, Quinn Ewers, right? Lowest percentage. They keep it underneath. Extensions of long handoffs, extensions of the running game. He could break tendency there. And all week I've been telling you guys, if there's a place where the Oklahoma's secondary defense is vulnerable, it's on deep shots, real deep, traveling 20 plus yards in the air. Against Power 5 quarterbacks, they've allowed 69% completion percentage against Power 5 quarterbacks, defending passes 20 plus yards in the air. That is a number that stands out. It's glaring. And I know Sark is looking at it too and probably licking his chops. And if they think that you're going to be throwing it underneath, which, that's been your tendency, that's the trend with Sark, especially early on with the early game, early down pass rates, I wonder if you'll see a change of pace or you'll see a tendency breaker early on, where the game plan could look in some respects like that 2021 game plan, which Sark just referenced, where you had Casey Thompson and he was the mad bomber. He came out early on, a lot of misdirection, the play action pass, deep shots, max protection, deep shots to try to get the receivers time to get behind that secondary. And they did early and often. I think he was 50% on his deep balls, 4 of 8. And they got up early in that game. And this secondary has also shown that vulnerability. They're really good defending underneath concepts, short, intermediate, because of how aggressive they are and how havoc-minded they are and how well prepared they are. The football IQ and football acumen with that group is one of the, I think that in terms of their hive-minded mentality, one of the best in the country. They're hive and havoc-minded. And I think you can make them pay for that. You can make them pay for that aggression. And you can have double moves and keep in, your max protection. I would recommend 12 personnel to start the game. I brought this up yesterday. If you're going to say you do want to come out and try to run the football, let's just say you want to come out and you do want to establish the run. It will be wise to do it out of it. And we assume Jaden Blue is going to start the game. And if you're going to start the game with Jaden Blue, it would be wise to run it out of 12 personnel. Jaden Blue out of 12 personnel saw this research yesterday. He is averaging 5.8 yards per rush when he is running behind one back, 2 tight ends. That's an impressive number. And then when you look at his rush yards per carry, just obviously normally all throughout the season, it's at 4.7. So you're talking about a running back who's averaging almost a yard more per rush when he's running behind one back, two tight ends, as opposed to any other personnel grouping. So start with one back, two tight ends with Jaden Blue. You would have some running success, but they would also give you some of you'd be able to obviously insulate your pass protection with more blockers so you can take some deep shots downfield if you feel so inclined. And I think he will. I think Sark will feel, hey, you know what? There's some shots that I could take. There's some ways I can expose them deep. And that's gonna kind of be my prediction as to how they may break tendency. All right. And then we'll get into this later, the 6-0 line package, which I think also Texas may use as a tendency breaker. But let's get back to Sark and the audio. Flipping the script on the defensive side for Texas, the conundrum for the Texas defense will be corralling a dual threat quarterback. Michael Hawkins has 14 scrambles. He can move around, extend plays. Last year, one of the reasons that Texas lost that game versus Oklahoma, they broke tendency. Speaking of tendency breakers, Dylan Gabriel had his best rushing performance of his career in a game. All right. And mostly on quarterback draws and scrambles. It's going to be a big topic, at least in that locker room for Texas, topic of conversation as to how they stay disciplined in their pass rush lanes and how they schematically try to take away the legs of Michael Hawkins Jr. Here's Sark talking about trying to achieve, that task of corralling a dual threat quarterback.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of layers to this, because I think coverages can dictate maybe how your rush lanes go. When you're playing zone coverage, sometimes you can be a little more aggressive with trying to really rush the quarterback, because the majority of the eyes of the defenders in the secondary are on the quarterback, and they can react if he does escape the pocket and you can get him on the ground. Where you have to be really careful with your rush lanes is when you're playing man coverage. Because when you're in man coverage and you get out of a rush lane and you give the quarterback somewhere to escape, when he goes to run, all of those guys in the secondary's backs are turned to the quarterback because they're guarding somebody, and now that can create, longer yardage type runs. The other way you can do that is to play man, try to really rush the quarterback and have a spy, where you can keep somebody's eyes on the quarterback, and when he does go to scramble, you can try to get him on the ground. And so, I think one of the keys in games like this is you have to continue to mix your looks, right? You can't just keep throwing a fastball. You got to throw a curve, you got to throw a changeup, you got to keep switching it up, or a quarterback can find that rhythm. The guys that drop back and then extend to scramble, as opposed to guys that drop back to extend to throw, it's pretty, I don't want to say it's easy when they're one or the other. When it's really hard is when they do both. Because now players are really compromised of, do I come up and try to get them on the ground, or do I stay in coverage? And so those guys are really the most dangerous of that, because they can do either or. And I actually think Michael Hawkins is one of those guys. He has plenty of arm talent that can make those throws when plays get extended. But clearly he's very dangerous with his legs when he tucks it and runs.
And he's comfortable tucking it and running it. I mean, he's got 14 scrambles on the season. I think he's got like 88 yards off those scrambles. One of those being that nearly 50-yard touchdown run that he had against Auburn. And when I went back and looked at his completions versus Auburn, I thought, he ended up with 10 completions, and half of those ended up being 15 yards or more. So the offense is a little bit more explosive with him, and we don't know what his developmental rate or his leap of improvement is going to be from his first start to his second start. Now, it will be in the Texas OU game, so it is a hostile environment, and I think it could be emotionally overwhelming for the young man. We don't know how he's going to respond to it. Even when Brent Venables was asked, how do you prepare a true freshman quarterback for the Texas-Oklahoma game in their first start, he said, you can't. There ain't nothing we can do. We're gonna put him in there, and we got to see how he responds. If he goes in there and starts hyperventilating and hands are shaking and he can't even, can barely hand the ball off, then you're like, all right, we gotta Casey might have to get ready to go, or Jackson Arnold. If Jackson Arnold wants to invoke his red shirt, then that ain't happening. And it's going to be a a hell of a Shakespearean irony, and quite the story and quite the historic precedent if Casey Thompson was able to come in there and play and go play up against Texas as a guy that started a game for Sark, actually his first start in the Texas OU game for the University of Texas. But I digress. Getting back to it, I do think I would blitz him. If I'm breaking tendency, one of the things I would do, I think that blitz rate would go up if I were PK and Johnny Nansen. I want to speed up his process. His time to throw is 3.3 seconds. That's a long time to hold on to the football, mostly because he's scrambling, extending plays. You got to be up on the scramble drill, something that does help Texas in the scramble drill. Oklahoma will be without their top 5 wide receivers again. That's been the case all year long, but no Deion Burks, no Nick Anderson, no Andrell Anthony, no Jalil Farouk, no Jaden Gibson. So if you're Texas and you can't hold up against, their 6th, 7th, and 8th best wide receivers on their roster in one-on-ones on an island every now and then when I decide to blitz this dude, we got big problems anyway. And we're going to get exposed, so I might as well know it now. And I don't think that's the case. I think the secondary, as a matter of fact, Texas leads the country in yards per attempt allowed without any pressure on the opposing quarterback. So their secondary still plays the tightest coverage in the country and the most effective coverage in the country with no pressure on the opposing quarterback. Secondary has been really good. Now, even with this group, I don't know how much they'll be tested, but I think Texas DBs can hold up against the 6th, 7th, and 8th best wide receivers for Oklahoma. So I expect them at times to blitz the young man, speed up his clock, flush him from the pocket, try to overwhelm him. The environment's going to be overwhelming enough. Don't just give him time back there to extend the play and scramble around. I want him to have to process a lot of different things. I wouldn't be gratuitous with the blitzes, but I would blitz more than the average for Johnny Nansen and PK, which I think is around 20%, a little over or under 20% is what you'll find for him. So that's something that may be a tendency breaker for him, but they don't need to do that. But I just think in order to put more on the young man's plate, because when he's blitzed, he holds onto the ball on average 3.3 seconds. When he's blitzed, it's 3.5 seconds in one game. It was 3.8 seconds in the other game where he played the majority of the snaps. So when you blitz him, he holds onto the ball even longer. Because I think instead of standing in the pocket, identifying his hot reads, he's deciding, man, hell no, I'm going to abandon the pocket. I'm getting the hell out of Dodge, and I'm going to run and go find either I'm going to make the plays with my legs or I'll find somebody downfield because he's more comfortable relying on his athleticism than relying on pass protection, which he'll learn in his career like, I can't survive like that. But it makes him dangerous. So I'd speed up his clock even more. And then that with that being said, he tends to hold on to the ball when you blitz him and speed him up, giving Colin Simmons and giving Trey Moore and giving Barron Sorrell more time to get home. Now your DBs need to hold up in coverage, but I have faith they'll hold up against the 6th, 7th, and 8th best wide receivers on the Oklahoma roster.
Do you like blitzing strong side against young quarterbacks to make them have to turn and basically throw out? Because you blindside blitz and maybe you get pressure, but they're running the way they're still looking. If you go up the middle, they're running the way they're still looking. If you come at them strong side, they see it. They have to then make a decision, even if you're 2 seconds away. They see it coming, and they have to turn their entire body, which then makes very inaccurate throws, makes much harder for a young quarterback to make those plays.
I think, I agree with that. I think you should, based on the film study, where is he most comfortable throwing the football in terms of on the run, and where does he look most awkward and uncomfortable throwing the football on the run? Try to flush him that way. But I agree with you. Yeah, I mean and I think, like Sark said, you got to mix it up on him. Mix it up a little bit 100%. So that he thinks, hey man, I'm coming from every direction, so he can never really get a consistent bead on exactly what you're trying to do. So I think that's what they should do. But that Texas defense, I mean, Texas is, how about this? Texas is 8th and 3rd down defense in the country, and this team, Oklahoma, 129th in 3rd down offense. Oklahoma's offense is last in the Power 5 in producing 20-plus yard explosive plays. Texas is first in college football. They are the best defense in college football at defending explosive plays in terms of explosive plays allowed. OU's 3-and-out percentage They are 26% 3-and-out percentage. They are last actually in the SEC in 3-and-out percentage. Texas forces 3-and-outs at the highest rate in the country. Yeah. Or if I say forces third down at the highest rate in the country. And Texas right now has only 9 3-and-outs as an offense. It's just very lopsided in a lot of ways when you start looking at that particular matchup, their offense versus the Texas defense. All right, we come back. We'll get into the topic for the big fat poll of the day, and we'll also get into the musically themed day of the week right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis here. Let me tell you about my friend Dr. Greg Eckert and his wonderful team. And if you don't know about him, well, you should, because he is the best dentist in Austin. And I owe him a huge debt of gratitude. I owe him and his team a huge debt of gratitude. I initially went there for a routine checkup and went there just to get a routine cleaning. Well, they're so thorough in their checkups. They found that I had some issues. My wisdom teeth were all starting to grow in sideways. It was causing me a disastrous situation potentially, because it was affecting my molars and other teeth, and I actually had a potential disaster on my hands. And what Dr. Eckert and his team did, they acted quickly. They made sure that I was educated, well informed about everything that was going on in the process. They got the procedure scheduled, got everything done, and I was back at work within a couple of days, actually. And my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better, thanks to Dr. Eckert and his wonderful team. And they can do the same for you. Now, hopefully for you, it's not as serious as having all your wisdom teeth extracted, right? Hopefully for you, it's something very routine and something very minor. But if it is something serious, trust me, you're in great hands with Dr. Eckert and his team. If it's general dentistry or teeth whitening or porcelain crowns or dentures, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, root canal therapy, you name it, whatever it is, Dr. Eckert and his team, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available, that's what they're all about. And right now, because of that commitment, they can give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secured to your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures until they complete your permanent smile, and you're going to smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. So we're talking about a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced and you're already stressing about it and you're starting to get down about it and you're depressed about it, don't be, because Dr. Eckert offers a revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a brand new smile in just one day, which sounds too good to be true. It's not. It's just Dr. You. That's what he's all about. It's a complimentary consultation, so you got nothing to lose but so much to gain, because a confident smile can truly change your life, and Dr. Eckert wants to change your life for the better. He understands the quality of your smile can affect the quality of your life, and he wants you to have a great quality of life. So hit him up today, 512-345-3166. And right now, if you tell him you heard it here on the horn, you'll get free Zoom whitening with whatever procedure and treatment you're getting from Dr. Eckert and his team. That's 512-345-3166. And don't forget, we're at the end of the year, so those benefits are about to run out. You want to use it before you lose it, and Dr. Eck's the perfect place for you to get all those treatments and other procedures that you need done before the end of the year. DrEckert.com, DRUECKERT.com.
Back on the Rodcast here on a Friday, and that means it's a 512 Friday where we play local music. You can go check out Around Town live this weekend. This is Amplified Heat, and they are playing tonight at Kick Butt Coffee. So if you want to go check out some music tonight, go check out Amplified Heat at Kick Butt Coffee. Let's get to the big fat poll of the day. Text line's open, 512-447-3776, and we'll get this posted up on X at The Horn ATX.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
Big fat poll of the day today. First of all, if you guys missed earlier, we're talking about pros versus Joes. We want to bring it back. So if you have ideas for pros versus Joes, there's some we can't say on the radio. I did like Philip Monsters. He would, if he had a staring contest with Ray Lewis, he would cry. I like that one. That's a solid text there. So text us in if you have a suggestion for what a pros versus Joes reboot. Who would you put in there? And
nice.
like especially if we can say it on the radio, because there were some funny ones, we just can't say them. They might not be appropriate.
There you go.
They might not be appropriate. So we won't say those. Well, I mean, maybe we can just get Nate Shuley. We'll get him, get a third and Longhorn pros and Joes going.
Oh man, no, I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one because Rod B's involved with that one. I don't know if I'm up to the pro. What am I, the pro or the Joe in this thing?
You're the pro in this one. Yes.
Oh no, I'm not. Nope. I might embarrass myself as a pro at this time. Can't do it.
We'll just make sure to get the right Joes in there. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm too old now. Like I'm in 40 something. I'm not too old for the pro. Some of those guys are younger than
Jerry
me.
Rice was still in the NFL too. He was like 63.
That's true. Good point. That's a good point. Jerry Rice. Yeah, I played with Jerry Rice, so that's how old
Tom Brady still wants to play. He's older than you.
Tom Brady would definitely be on the pros versus Joes. He would definitely. I don't know how you would do it, but you would definitely have Tom on there doing something.
And he would be mad about it too.
Yeah, because it'd probably be on Fox. Isn't he with Fox now? Who's he with?
Yeah,
is it Fox?
I think Pros vs. Joes was on Spike, if I remember correctly.
Oh, was it on Spike? All right,
TV for guys.
Nice. There you go. Like
but our poll today: how many points will Texas score against OU? Is what the question we'll be asking you today. The options I'll give you: 0 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and 31 plus. That is not an arbitrary number. 31 plus. We're looking at just what Vegas says. Vegas says that Texas is a 14.5 point favorite in this game. They also said the over-under is at 48. So if you combine those two numbers and do a little math, their final score prediction is 31-17. It's Texas winning by 14 and hitting the over-under at 48. So if they're guessing right about where it's going to be, that's at 48. 31-17 is what they're basically hedging their bets at. So that 31 is what they're saying Texas will score. So I'm not going crazy on this score by saying 31 plus against OU. Not saying that. That's what Vegas says, and I'll put that as my top number, is covering what Vegas basically says, 31 plus.
Yeah, 31 plus. I got him scoring more than 31. I think I had him at like 30. I think I had him at 34. I've done a couple of score predictions, so I don't know if I had the same score prediction every time, but usually I'm at 30, between 34 and 36 points.
Yeah, I'm curious because I wanted to put this one to see if 31 plus runs away with it, or if there are some more. I know our man Shane on the text line has been worried all day. He's been worried all week. He's worried after every game. So
yeah,
I know. So there's some people that are a little bit more worried about it. They think, it's a rivalry game. I get it.
Yep.
But that is what the question we'll ask you. How many points will Texas score against OU? The highest number is basically covering. So I'll give you the highest number is basically covering what Vegas thinks they'll score.
Yeah, I mean Oklahoma's defense is good. If Oklahoma, if they're able to force turnovers, they get takeaways. Yeah, I mean that Texas may not score 31. If they get more than one takeaway, then you could end up with short fields and limited possessions for Texas. We don't know if their running game is going to work. I sort of think their running game is going to work versus Texas, but if they're able to do what Mississippi State did and just slow the game down to a crawl, limit possessions early, that could obviously matter. But hell, Texas still scores very quickly. And what they scored versus Mississippi State, they still, even though it was most of it late in the game in the fourth quarter, they still ended up pulling away and winning by 20-something points. So I'm gonna say it's almost a no-brainer. It's really hard to keep Texas under 30 these days.
I agree. I just know we'll see. So we'll see if that'll be the easy. I just went with the highest being the line of Vegas to not get too cocky before an OU game. Didn't want to get too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I'm with you. If they had an offense, I could say, yeah, they got enough complementary elements. They could keep
Yes.
Texas under because the defense is good.
Yeah.
They'll make some plays, but I just don't think they're gonna. I think they're gonna have so many 3 and outs. They gotta, but basically 26% of their drives end in 3 and outs.
And the
I
concept
just
would
think
be too that if they do score, it would be on a busted play, so it wouldn't be a long drive necessarily, a long sustained drive for a touchdown.
yes,
It would be
a short field.
It'd be a
you
short
know.
field where it's either special teams or just a busted coverage or something where they get a big play out of it, which still doesn't use time.
Yep. Yeah, and like I said, that's what they need to do in order to keep Texas to keep them from scoring more than 31 or whatever it is. You got to limit possessions, and I'm not sure they can do it because I'm not sure the offense can maintain the football that long. But I'm sure they'll have a plan. They're gonna have a plan. I just don't. I haven't been able to figure out offensively what they're gonna be able to do versus this Texas defense. But yeah, I got them scoring 30 plus. So good conversation there. All right, go check it out. Topic for the big fat poll today. We'll get that posted for you at X at the Horn ATX. When we come back, we'll dive into some NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We'll preview the Texans and the Patriots. We'll also preview the Detroit Lions and that Dallas Cowboys matchup. We'll get back to talking Texas football because we'll get into Raj Rant, and Raj Rant will essentially be previewing the Texas-Oklahoma matchup, all of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a freak flag, feel good, fake it till you make it. Ric Flair, woo! 512 football, state fair, street fight, Friday edition of the Rodcast. Yeah, we got a lot of them in there today. And the 512 means that my man Patrick plays jams from local bands and artists, very talented human beings that you have a chance to catch live right here in the ATX. Who we jamming right now, Patrick?
This is Susanna Schofel, and she is playing Saturday at Seaboys.
All right, there you go. And Patrick always hooking us up with 512 Friday, so we appreciate that. We're going to hook you up with more Texas Oklahoma breakdown. We'll be doing that when we get into Rod's rant next segment. We'll drop into some NFL discussion here about the Texans and their matchup coming up versus the Patriots and the Dallas Cowboys, who are kind of a mash unit right now facing the Detroit Lions. Bad timing for the Cowboys coming off of a tight win or game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where a lot of guys ended up getting hurt. They did show a lot of grit winning that game, but they had more injuries come out of that matchup as well. And the Lions are coming off a bye week, so they're fresher than they've been all season long. And the Cowboys are probably as injury riddled as they've been all season long. So probably a bad time for the Cowboys, but we'll see what they bring to the table. We'll break that down coming up here in just a second. But first, let's get updated, let's get educated, let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB playoffs, the Yankees advanced to the ALCS with a 3-1 win over the Royals last night. Garrett Cole pitched 7 innings, allowing 1 run, and Giancarlo Stanton continued his hot streak with another RBI in the game. The Guardians got a 5-4 win over the Tigers to force a deciding Game 5 on Saturday. David Fry came in to pinch hit in the 7th and swung the game with 3 RBIs in his 2 at-bats. Tonight, the Padres and Dodgers finished their series in a Game 5 with Yu Darvish facing Yoshi Yamamoto. In college football, some big games of the week include number 9 Ole Miss and number 13 LSU, number 4 Penn State taking on USC, number 2 Ohio State against number 3 Oregon, and of course, number 1 Texas and number 18 Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. Coach Sark officially stated that Quinn Ewers would start the game for the Longhorns after missing the last few weeks due to an abdominal injury. Kickoff is at 2:30 at the Cotton Bowl. And in the NFL, the 49ers regained their lead in the NFC West with a 36-24 win over the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football. Seattle fought back in the second half from down 20 to down 6 with the ball when Geno Smith threw his second interception of the game to help seal the deal for the 49ers. This week, the Texans travel to New England to take on the Patriots with Drake May getting his first start. And the Cowboys face the Lions with Dallas still dealing with a number of injuries on the defensive line. And that is your Horn Headlines.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. Yeah, we can start there because the Dallas Cowboys dealing with a ton of injuries, and most of those on the at the edge position on the D line. Marshawn Nealon is going to be out. Marcus Lawrence, of course, he's out. Micah Parsons not expected to play at all, of course, and we know they lost Sam Williams early before the season even started. So the edge room has really been hit by the injury bug. It is a bad time going up against the Detroit Lions, who you play a lot of plays against the Detroit Lions too. I read a stat earlier that Detroit Lions games, basically games involving the Lions, have averaged a league high 128.5 plays. You play a lot. Why? And defenses don't get off the field. Guy was 18 of 18. Hard to get off the field against them. So it wears your defense out a little bit. And this is a bad time for the Cowboys, who have depth issues right now. So I'm not worried about the back 7. I think they're fine there. I think, Eric Kendricks and DeMarvin Overshown actually been playing pretty well. DeMarvin Overshown can run sideline to sideline. They may get to run Bland back. They may be getting Kalen Carson back. And of course, Trevon Diggs has been steady back there. They got a decent, pretty good safety combo in Hooker and Donovan Wilson and Jordan Lewis at the nickel. So they're pretty steady in the back end, and I'm not worried about them having the depth to withstand a lot of plays and make enough plays in the back 7. I just worry they're not going to be able to make enough plays with the defensive line. How can they apply pressure to Jared Goff? I mean, this guy, even in the face of pressure, had a perfect game, which is not even something you can, not even a football term, but you could apply it to what he did last week. He had a perfect game in the last game that the Detroit Lions played, and that's in the face of pressure. Can the Cowboys apply pressure to Jared Goff, force him into making some mistakes? This Detroit Lions offense, and they're very balanced. You look at their rush pass percentage at 49% rush percentage, 49.2. They're about as balanced as it gets in the NFL. And I got a feeling they're going to run the rock on the Dallas Cowboys. Why wouldn't you? I mean, that's with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. They're calling them now. Oh, man. I don't know if you played the video. You ever play Sonic the Hedgehog?
I mean, a long time ago,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I want to say now they're calling them like Sonic and Knuckles.
Knuckles is the red one. But Tails was always his buddy. Then Knuckles who came along, I guess, is more popular.
I'll send you the audio. I want to say that Amon-Ra St. Brown said that. Like,
they're too young. They don't remember back in the day before Knuckles. These guys don't remember pre-Knuckles.
Oh, really? Oh, see, there you go. I was kind of into it, but I'm not sure if I was really into it.
My brother played a lot of video games, and so.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, Sonic and Knuckles. Yeah, I'm gonna send this to you. I got it right here. Yeah, Sonic and Knuckles. Said that's what their new, I guess, nickname is and tag name is. And I think David Montgomery is obviously Knuckles here. Jahmyr Gibbs is Sonic.
Yeah,
in case you didn't get the reference.
Yes, this feels like a Jamal Williams thing, though, doesn't it? He's not even there anymore.
Oh, yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know where it's. I haven't even listened to it. I saw it. I saw the tag, and I was like, "That's a weird thing," and I kind of bookmarked it. And now I'll send it to you. Maybe we could use that later on in the show.
There
But they have a formidable backfield. My point is that, and they're one of the most physical offensive lines in the NFL, and that's just a really bad time to be going up against an injury-riddled defensive line for the Cowboys, especially on the edges. And then, as we pointed out, yes, your D tackles and interior D line are playing better, but they still are among the that's a talent deficient position for you. And we've talked about how you need to trade for a run-stopping presence in the interior D line. I think it's a bad matchup for the Cowboys right now, and more bad timing than a bad matchup. More bad timing. If they didn't have as many injuries, this wouldn't be a matchup issue because the Cowboys can match up. But it is a timing issue with the timing of all the injuries to the Cowboys. And on the offensive side of the ball, I do think the Cowboys will be able to move the football because Dak right now is playing at a really high level. But then, missing Brandon Cooks is the run game. Does the run game still continue to improve like it did last week against the Steelers? That was a good performance. They gave more of the lead of that running back by committee. The lead of it, I think, was Rico Dowdle, and I think that worked out for him. Rico Dowdle had over 100 all-purpose yards. That should be something else you're trying to, in my opinion, empower a young Rico Dowdle. But something else you should be trying to achieve is to get those young guys involved. Jalen Tolbert had his career game. So basically, Rico Dowdle and Jalen Tolbert had career games versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you need to build on that versus the Detroit Lions. You're going to have to, because the Detroit Lions, they're going to be able to score points. We know that about Detroit. And if the Cowboys, aren't able to have enough explosive plays in the passing game, or at least offer some balance going up against Detroit, because right now they don't really have any. The Cowboys are a pass happy team. I mean, they throw the ball. And if you only had they have 80 rushing yards on runs of 10 or more yards. That's the fewest in the NFL. If you had the least potent or least explosive running game in the league, you might not want to be overly reliant on it either. So the Cowboys are not. The Dallas Cowboys have gained 77% of their yardage has been gained via passing. That is the highest rate in the league. So that's not going to change this week, I don't think.
No, and I mean, there is something to be said, too, for the defensive injuries and possibly the running back game and possibly any trades they were made. They have a bye week next week. The Cowboys do. That's their bye week. So it feels like for Deron Bland and for Micah Parsons and some of these guys who may need another week, this may be a game where the more you read on it, they're saying, let's not rush anything back for one game. Let's get the bye week in. Then we get everybody much healthier, because we get 2 weeks to get everybody healthy. And then they have the 49ers coming out of that bye week, which they know is a big game psychologically for this Cowboys team at this point. If you can beat the 49ers, even if they're beat up and down, it's a psychological win for the Cowboys. I think that's a bigger game and just in the season for them than the Lions is. So the Lions go, man, we were beat up. We'll go out there and play our best game, but we're not going to stick Mike out there if he's kind of beat up. We may not want to put Deron Bland right back out of injury. Even if we do, he's going to play limited times. And so it's going to be an interesting look. But that also is for that running game for the Cowboys. If you're going to look into it, that bye week would be the time. So this could be a deciding game of what Rico Dottle does. The urgency of the Cowboys to make a move at running back is if Rico Dottle's able to get close to 100 yards, close to 80 something, maybe, then I think they're going to have less urgency to do it. But if he gets held and this Detroit defense kind of slows him down and he's averaging, under 4 yards a carry, doesn't do much, they're just throwing the entire game, you might see them have to try and make something happen here in this bye week.
Yeah, no, Rico Dottle, like I say, he looked good versus the Steelers. Hell, if you can get him close to 100 all-purpose yards, I'll take it, because essentially a lot of, and his touchdown wasn't, but with the running back position, those are some of those. A lot of those targets are long handoffs, extensions of the running game anyway. So we'll see. I'm with you, though. Right now, I would still say the priority is you need a run-stopping D tackle, but they have been much better in the last 2 weeks.
They have.
We'll see in this game. But
again, we're going to the bye week. You are beat up, but if they just run all over you, then you may have to sit back and say, okay, we need to go back and look at the drawing board and see if there's anybody in that bye week availability. If we can bring
run, it depends on where they run. I agree.
Yeah,
where they run too is important. If they're killing you on the edge, I'm not as concerned, because that's where you're deficient because of the injuries. If they're running inside on you though a lot, I'm a little concerned, just because those are your same D tackles you've had, and maybe the improvement was not as, obviously it wasn't as substantive as we anticipated. And then that also says a lot about your linebackers inside too, with Kendricks and DeMarvio and Overshown. So, but I'm with you. I think how they hold up against Detroit will let you know about the urgency of what we need to do during the bye, what you need to do during the bye week. And I still think you need to go trade for a D tackle and a running back. I don't even think you need to wait. But like you said, which one do you prioritize and how much do you invest will probably depend on how those aspects perform versus Detroit. One thing I'm also concerned about with the Cowboys, how they defend motion. And saw this little stat: the Dallas Cowboys defense has allowed 9.8 yards per attempt on pass plays that involve pre-snap motion. You guys know I love me some pre-snap motion. I would slather my offense in motions and shifts. If I was an offensive coordinator, just slather it. I mean, it's just dripping off the sides of it. But by the way, that's the worst in the NFL. They allow the most yards per attempt on pass plays that involve pre-snap motion. The reason that matters is because Detroit, if you ever watch Detroit's offense, what do you notice? Ton of pre-snap motion for Detroit, right? They are, if you go look at it overall, the Detroit Lions, they were 7th overall in motion at the snap, and they are 5th overall in pre-snap motion rate. And this was based off last week, but still, they're going to be top 5 to top 10 in pre-snap motion rates and shifts. And their tight end, Sam Laporta, he's been sent in motion almost 38% of the time this season. And among those who qualify, that's the 6th highest rate in the NFL overall, and notably the highest rate among tight ends. So DeMarvio and Overshown, Eric Kendricks and Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker, whoever ends up matched up on Sam Laporta, that's going to be the matchup to watch, because you need fail safes in there. You're going to need checks. You need built-in, almost baked-in adjustments to how much motion the Detroit Lions are going to deploy, and for Sam Laporta specifically, because they're just hunting matchups with this dude now. And that's what Sark does it too. Yeah. But that's what they're doing. And the Cowboys have already been susceptible to that. Remember we played the audio. We played the audio in the offseason, and what did Mike Zimmer say? His number one most troublesome concept to defend was, remember they asked him, they say, hey, what modern offensive concept do you have the most trouble defending that gives you the most headaches? And he said pre-snap motion.
Yeah. And that's why motion. That Eric Kendricks, he's questionable, I believe. That is a huge one for them too, because he is going to be leading this defense, at least vocally, and trying to get people in the right places. And if you're sticking everybody trying to make sure this run game's not killing you, and then you have a tight end that's in motion half the game, you really need that guy who knows what's going on to be able to point out and make sure somebody is covering Sam Laporta.
Yeah, he's like the brain of that defense right now, because he knows the Zimmer system better than anybody else too.
So that'll be a big one if he's able to go. I think the projections are that he's going to be able to go, but he is on that injury report.
Yeah, man, you need that big Dak energy in this game versus Detroit. You just need Dak to come save the day. I mean, put the cape on, Dak. He's done it before. He did it in the Pittsburgh game.
Hey, Jalen Tolbert looked really good last week. If you get Tolbert to look better, that'll be a big one. If you get, CeeDee Lamb to get some separation this week, I'm sure they'll double him plenty. But if you're able to get that's some extra love there, and then Ferguson, get him more involved in the game. You try and get as many options as you can, but that Tolbert, if he continues to play like he did last week, that'll be a huge help for the Cowboys.
It will be. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. No question. Something to bring up when I was talking about the emotion thing and how the Cowboys have issues defending motion. Don't forget, remember Malik Neighbors went off against with the Cowboys in that game against the Giants. He's just a great player.
Yeah.
Remember, a lot of his receptions, they were putting him in motion. He had 10 targets after going in motion, and he caught 9 of them in that game. That was a big part of how they schemed him open. Detroit Lions going to try to do the same thing. Tell you right now.
No, I remember at the end of that one, they started to have Trayvon Diggs start to follow him on like the last 2 or 3 plays.
Who do you get to follow the tight end if you're the Cowboys? DeMarvin Overshown probably would be one of my first ones, but I don't know if you want to following him because then that would change your defense responsibilities and the strength. But Overshown matched up on Laporte, it wouldn't be terrible.
No,
in terms of line.
And you don't have a mobile quarterback this week, so you don't need him in that part of the game plan as much.
Yeah, you're right. It's a good point. All right. I don't know how the Cowboys are going to do it, but they got to find a way to stay in this game with the Detroit Lions.
That's why they get paid the big bucks.
Yeah, it's just bad timing for the Cowboys. I don't think it's a bad matchup, but the timing is terrible.
Yep.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Texans. And next segment, we'll talk Texas, Oklahoma. I got some numbers about the Texans that are, and they're disturbing, but we've talked about these before. So it's disturbing for the same reasons we brought up previously on the show. But I got these are the kind of the latest ones. All right, these are the updated numbers. We're not sure about Joe. What's our status update on Joe Mixon? I know that
he practiced yesterday.
He
practiced yesterday.
So Dameon Pierce practicing and Joe Mixon practicing?
They have both practiced now.
Whoa,
they've both been back. This is the first day back at practice for Joe Mixon, which I know because he came out afterwards and got mad at the NFL for not finding the player more for the hip drop tackle.
Oh, for the hip. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
so he came back after that things. It was like
4 games. As a
you
result
find Nico more for lowering his helmet on a play, defending himself, than a guy who took me out when I was a leading rusher in the NFL. Yeah. No, I'm with you. No, and I get what he's saying, but I know that was the story. So I saw that story, and in that story, they mentioned that he practiced for the first time since the injury. So that is a good sign see that Joe Mixon, because that is huge for this offense, especially with Nico Collins being out.
It's a great sign, actually. All right, so now I'm feeling real good. I was feeling good anyway. I mean, it's the Patriots. Patriots aren't great, but I will say this, and we have some Bobby Slowick sound actually about this particular topic. Schematically, that Patriot system they're running is a system very closely related to the Brian Flores system. I mean, they're basically cousins, and so they can try to, replicate some of the things that Brian. Now they don't have Brian Flores' mind, and they don't have the athletes that Minnesota does necessarily, but they're a good defense, and they schematically they have a blueprint that Brian Flores gave them. And they can schematically do some of the same things. But here's the success rate. How about this? So for the Texans, the success rate on running back runs right now for the Texans is 23%. That's last in the NFL since week 1. So we've taken Joe Mixon out of it. That's why it's so big that Joe Mixon is practicing. Without Joe Mixon, they had the 23% success rate on running back runs last in the NFL. That 23% would rank among the 5 worst running games for an offense since 2012. Of the Texans' design runs, 64% of them were with the running back or runner contacted before he got to the line of scrimmage. Second highest number in the league. So 64% of the runs that you have where you're handing out the ball. So 2 out of 3 handoffs. The guy's hitting the backfield. Your O-line is leaky too.
Yeah, it's not been great. The communication has not been there. The penalties. It just, I mean, they need to figure out that offensive line, and just it feels like the fact that they weren't together last year meant that everybody kind of went in their own world and they're all playing by themselves as opposed to being a unit. And that's a bad offensive line. If you are not a unit, it doesn't feel like they're a unit at all because we see them.
So much talent, though.
I get that, but it's just not being. They're not together, and it doesn't feel because you see them miss things where it's, if you communicate, somebody at least puts a hand up.
Yeah.
You at least somebody tries, but they just all kind of look at their block and go, "Well, I got my block," and there isn't that feeling of a unit where you go,
Cohesion.
no one lays, no man will lay hands on my quarterback.
Yeah, you're right. Kelvin Banks, my quarterback, untouched by the hands of man. Love that. But no, you're right. I totally agree with you. And it's crazy because they got so much time. They've invested so much in that O-line, and yet, they're leaky. They're leaky in run blocking. They're leaky in pass blocking too. And once again, the Texans, I looked this up. They are dead last in the NFL right now in average yards to gain or to go on third down. It's 9.3 over the last 4 games. Yes. And that is 2 yards longer than the NFL average. The NFL average is 7. So, that third down, that's something the Texans really have to deal with. Also something else I thought, I want to see if the Texans could supplement the run game with the screen game, that maybe that's something that, they can use more of. And then I went and looked up and found this stat from True Media. The Texans, they're decent on success rate on screens, but they have only recorded 1 explosive play on 23 screens so far this year. So they don't get any real chunk yards on their screens, but it is a way for them potentially to supplement the run game. But that's the Texans right now just have some issues on first and on early downs moving the football. They're not good running the football on early downs, and really their only solution on early downs is just let CJ Stroud throw it. And they're potentially about to become too pass heavy. We're talking about 2 Texas teams offenses that have similar issues. They can't get their running game going for different reasons, and they're way too pass heavy. Cowboys and the Texans, way too pass heavy.
Yep.
The Cowboys don't have the third down issue that the Texans have, but they have some of the same, I think, the same struggles and glaring issues, which is the lack of a running game.
Mm-hmm.
Got to figure that out.
But hopefully Mixon coming back will help that. Hopefully.
Yeah, it definitely will. If Mixon's back, then actually I'm not even worried about it. I think that issue will resolve itself. And maybe that's why the Texans aren't concerned either. But what if Joe Mixon, I'm knocking on wood, is dealing with injuries all season long? You still need to find a solution to your issues in the running game. All right, we're going to find some solutions for Texas coming up in this Texas OU game. We'll talk about the matchup between Texas and Oklahoma. I'll give you a couple of other nuggets that I found about this matchup, and I'll tell you what I expect Texas to do to get the upper hand schematically, tactically, strategically. We'll get into it all right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas-Oklahoma conversation. Start with the most compelling matchup, of course, the Texas offense versus that Oklahoma defense. And I really do think that if, I was looking at the havoc rates and offenses that allow the fewest havoc plays, and shout out to StatCat when I went and found some of this stuff. And it's interesting, Oklahoma's defense, they feed off havoc plays. If you can deny them havoc plays, that's your tackles for loss, your sacks, your interceptions, PBUs, your forced fumbles, your fumble recoveries, any big play by the defense, that's a havoc play. If you deny them havoc plays, I think you can starve that defense. You can drive the football on Oklahoma. They are not a suffocating defense that's going to stonewall you. What they do is they make clutch plays in critical moments. Is what they do. Third downs, red zone, and they're very aggressive and attacking, havoc-minded defense. The way you starve that defense is you protect the football, you protect your quarterback, and you guard against negative plays, period. And if you go look at it, Texas right now, second lowest sack rate in the SEC, going up against a team that's top 10 in the country in generating sacks. And Texas offense, third best offense in the SEC at preventing havoc plays overall. Just preventing havoc plays, meaning trying to play clean and, it's protecting the quarterback and obviously not having a lot of negative plays in the running game, your stuff rate in the running game. So Texas offense, at least so far, does match up well with a havoc-minded defense like Oklahoma's, which, like I said, the top 10 in sacks, top 10 in tackles for loss, top 5 in takeaways. And that's the real big thing. To me, the turnover rate, that's something that Texas has actually turned the football over a little more than Longhorn fans would have liked, a little more than Sark would have liked so early on this year. All right. Now, you want to put that all on Jaden Blue or put that on a young quarterback like Arch Manning going in there, they've turned the ball over more than they should have, considering the competition so far this year. They have. And that you want to say that comes back to Hunter. Remember, Sark was just talking about, we played the audio of Quinn having a very, uncharacteristic, almost, dumbfounding, stupefying interception in the first Texas OU game. So he was trying to throw it away and ended up throwing it to the Texas OU player. And then last year, a lot of turnovers. It's one of the big reasons you lost that game. So to me, turnovers is what it's going to come down to. Havoc plays, that would mean that Texas is allowing them to create a lot of negative plays on their side of the line of scrimmage. I don't see that. I don't see Texas, the sack rates all of a sudden going through the roof. I'm sure they're going to, give up some pressures. But, Michigan, trust me, Michigan went after Quinn. They got a nasty D line. They got a couple of guys that'll be drafted, probably 3 guys that'll be drafted in the first 2 rounds on that defensive line. And Wink Martindale, nobody blitzes more than Wink Martindale, college or pro. He came after Quinn, and Quinn was the best version of himself. Actually, Quinn was better in that game. I remember looking it up. Quinn was better under pressure than he was from a clean pocket versus Michigan. He's that Quinn put the cape on. And that Quinn, I don't know if it'll matter much what Brent Venables is going to bring to the table. But I think ultimately, if takeaways is what this game is going to come down to, because that's what Oklahoma's defense, at least this matchup, that's what Oklahoma's good at, and that's something that Texas hasn't proven to be completely stable with yet. They have had some turnovers so far this year. Even last game, of course, that's why Mississippi State stayed in the game. So that's one thing that really you can't predict. Really, and how that, how the turnover margin is going to go. And you could have a rusty Quinn. I don't think you will, but that could be the case. But Texas offense has done a great job so far this season in sack rates and in limiting havoc plays offensively. But I think Sark is going to come out, and I've said it before, he's going to come out and throw the football. That's just what he does in big games, and that's what he's been doing so far this year. You could see him break tendency and try to run it, but to me, that would be, you'd be doing Oklahoma a favor if you came out and tried to run the football against Oklahoma to break tendency. I'm not saying you can't do it, but you'd be doing them a favor. And if you go look at rushing yards, like before contact, that's usually the rushing, that stat usually attributes how much a push you're getting from the offensive line initially in the running game. If you look at rushing yards before contact, the average, Texas is at what 2.3. That's not dominant. I mean, I think you're in the lower half of the SEC with that number. Texas, that's not what this team does well. The run game will complement the pass game after they have adjusted to defending all the weapons you have in the pass game. I think and that's why in this game and so far this season, Texas has leaned on the pass. And in big games anyway, even when Sark is trying to achieve moderation and trying to achieve balance, he leans on the pass in the big games. It'll happen in this game too. And there's some things you just know about Sark in games like this. I think that the pre-snap motion rates will probably be higher than the average, as well they should. Texas probably has the most explosive offense in the SEC when it comes to plays with pre-snap motion. Usually pre-snap motion rates go up. In the Michigan game, you had a second highest rate of pre-snap motion since Sark has been at Texas. Pre-snap motions and shifts, I should say, since he's been at Texas. And I think that's usually an indicator of his creativity and innovation. The more motions and shifts that you get pre-snap with him. So I think that'll probably be a little bit higher than the average, as well as it should be. But if let's just say Sark does want to come out and he wants to break Tennessee with the run game, I think it is possible to do it. I'm not saying Texas can't run the football on Oklahoma. I just think ultimately the trends are that Texas is usually going to be a pass heavy. And by the way, Brent Venables knows that. And they're going to be a pass heavy team early game, early down. That's why last year's game plan for Brent Venables was a really good one. I mean, a very effective one. And you can argue that it was a better game plan to start that game than Texas and Sark had, because he knew Sark was going to throw it early on, and he knew he was going to be throwing it underneath. And that's what you know about the Sark offense. He's going to throw it early, 60, 65% early down pass rate, and he's probably going to throw it underneath because Quinn has the lowest percentage of passes targeting 10 plus yards downfield. He doesn't throw it a lot downfield. He only got 7 passes that have been thrown 20 yards or more down the field the entire season. So if you want to talk about a true Tennessee breaker, for me, I would break Tennessee that way if I was Sark. If you're going to run it, you run it out of 12 personnel, because Jaden Blue averaging 4.7 yards per carry, but out of 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends, that number jumps to 5.8 yards per rush. In every other personnel grouping, his yards per rush drops below 4. So you run it out of 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends. That allows you also insulate your pass protection with another tight end, and you can take some deep shots, some deep play action pass shots off of that, because that would break tendency, because you have not thrown the ball deep a lot with Quinn Ewers, and Texas doesn't necessarily run the ball, have a balanced run rate early game, early down, and you'd be attacking what I think may be the biggest weakness on that Oklahoma defense, which is their inability to defend the deep pass, 20 plus air yards in the air on those deep shots. So for the Power 5 quarterbacks, they're completing over 65% of those passes. That number's got to be one of the highest in the country. It's got to be. that is a really high number, and I think Texas is easily the most talented quarterback room, most talented, most sophisticated passing game, the most talented wide receiver room, and the best pass blocking offensive line that they've played. Yes, that includes Tennessee too. So if anybody can take it, Tennessee can take advantage of it, and if U of H can take advantage of it, I think, and Auburn can take advantage of it, Texas definitely can. So that's where I would go if I wanted to run the football. I'm not saying Sark's going to do that, but if I did, I'd do that and then complement that with deep play action pass shots over the top of the Oklahoma DBs. In addition to that, I do think my intuition, I believe you're going to see the 6-0 line package for the first time all season, by the way. Malik Agbo barely has played at all. And he hasn't been out there in the Big 11, Big 12 packages when they bring the extra offensive lineman in there. I went back and looked at my notes from last season, and this stood out to me that when you looked at the 6-0 line package plays from 2023, Texas was able to run the ball on Oklahoma. They had 3 explosive runs. There are 2 explosive runs and 3 explosive plays, but 2 explosive runs out of the 9 runs, and you were averaging damn near 8 yards per rush against Oklahoma out of the 6-0 line package. To me, that is, and you did have 2 negative plays, but in the run game, but hell, you'll take that. And the hope is that Brent Venables also knows this, and he's He's a very diligent coach and play caller, so I'm sure he does. He's looked at last year's film and looked at the 6-0 line package, how much success Texas had running the football out of it, and just period. They averaged over 8 yards per play in that 6-0 line package last year. So he probably has an adjustment already, in the game plan for the 6-0 line package, but it's probably to have better run fits against it. Because last year they gave up a lot in the running game. You only threw it 5 times out of it last year and was 3 of 5, but you didn't get any deep shots. You just had intermediate completions in it. But last year, Texas averaged over almost 12 yards per attempt throwing out of that 6-0 line package. So you were taking deep shots. Your explosive, you go look at your explosive pass rate, explosive play pass rate out of that 6-0 line package last year. You were probably at 20, you were over 25%. The explosive pass play rate. You averaged, like I said, almost 8 yards per play out of it. So it really did translate well in that Texas OU game. And I think the change, the tendency breaker would be to break it out in this matchup, but then to throw out of it more instead of running, because you actually didn't improve your run metrics out of it very much from 22 to 23. But against Oklahoma, you had a very formidable running attack with that personnel grouping. This year, I'd flip it. I'd basically come out of it and I'd play action pass shots, max protect, and take them deep with it. That's my prediction. It's the reason you hadn't seen it this year, and it makes no sense because you haven't had injuries on the O-line. Doesn't make sense that we've seen it for the last 2 years in the Sark as a staple, or at least as a complementary element, and now haven't seen it at all. Maybe because you don't need it, but this might be the game where I don't know if you need it, but it'd be the perfect game to break it out. Also, just one other thing, talking about that Texas offense and ways they can break tendency. If I'm Texas, man, I've said this before, I want to get out to a lead, just like you did versus Michigan. Remember, the whole point was you want Michigan to play your style. Don't play Michigan style of football. Don't allow them to dictate the terms and the tempo of the game like Mississippi State did. And then it took you, 3 quarters to really start to separate from Mississippi State. If you win the toss, take the football. And even if, I think, scoring first, even if you obviously don't get the football, still matters, but have the intention and the premeditated intention of, hey, if we win the toss, we want the ball because we're going to go down and score. We already got a plan that we're going to go down and score. And then the whole game, even that Michigan game, you didn't score first, but that first drive where you drove down the field and it didn't score, but you set the tempo, you set the stage, you dictated the terms of the matchup. I think that's important in this game too. So that's something that I think if you're a Sark, you want to emphasize. I've also, and I've been wrong about this all season long, but I'm going to continue to say it. I think you'll see the red package. I've been talking about it since the offseason. Red package is a 1 back, 0 tight ends, a 10 personnel, just 4 wide receivers on the field because you're so deep at wide receiver. I've been, predicting, hey, he'll bring that concept over from his Bama days. That's why they call it the red package, where he had 4 first-round wide receivers. This would be a great game to do it. Brent Venables isn't prepared for it. It didn't game plan for it because you haven't used it at Texas. Why the hell would he game plan for a ghost? But you got the depth at wide receiver. You got the O-line and the veteran experience there. You got a third-year starting quarterback. You had an extra week to put it in and prep. That's something else that I'm predicting that you'll see that you haven't seen. And maybe he says we don't need it, and you'll see it versus Georgia, and you won't see it versus Oklahoma. But I'm going to keep doubling down on that. I'm going to double down on wrong. Even when I haven't seen it yet, I still think it's in the repertoire and there's a chance for it. So there you go. That's some of my ways I think the Texas offense is going to approach attacking that Oklahoma defense. But as long as they protect Quinn and they protect the football and they guard against negative plays, those 3 things, Texas is going to be fine in that matchup. They'll win comfortably. All right, we come back. We got what the facts, what the stats on the other side, and then we'll get into that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some what the facts, what the stats here on the show. How about this one? What the facts, what the stats? I got a bunch of them, but I like this one. This is a pretty cool one. So I was looking at looking at some of the games over the weekend and some of the matchups. Found this one about Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, Ollie Gordon won the award for the best running back in the country last season, and won the Doak Walker. And apparently his team, the Oklahoma State Cowboys, they have the second worst rush yards differential of any FBS team this season, and yet has the reigning Doak Walker Award winner on their roster. Like, that's crazy. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
that is a like, I don't know what's going on. I haven't said this is why I haven't watched a lot of Big 12 football. I've watched some, but I used to watch damn near every Big 12 game because that's who Texas was playing. That was the ecosystem I was in. So now I'm watching a lot more SEC. So I haven't been watching. I know Oklahoma State's playing some good football, but I haven't really seen what their offensive identity is and how it looks. But I know Ollie Gordon did not start the year off really well. According to Next Gen Stats, the 49ers had 317 yards last night out of 21 personnel. That was the most by any offense since 2016 out of 21 personnel. The Niners averaged 11.3 yards per play with a 61% success rate on 28 plays and 21 personnel. Nobody in the league runs as much 21 personnel as Shano and the 49ers. So nobody would have been able to accomplish that anyway. They would have been the only team. Maybe the Dolphins, because the Dolphins run some 21 personnel pony package type stuff, but that is phenomenal that they're that good zigging when the rest of the league is zagging in that respect. All right, other stats here and what the facts, what the stats.
I saw one about the Texas OU game, which this is the first time ever since they started playing annually that both teams are coming off a bye.
It had to be. I'm glad you confirmed that. I thought that had to be the case.
That since they started playing annually in 1929, this is the first time both teams are coming off a bye going into the game.
Okay. I'm glad you confirmed that. I thought that was the case. I just couldn't confirm it, but that makes sense. Yeah. So I don't know if that's an advantage for either team. I think it's kind of a push. I don't know if that's an advantage for either team. Maybe it's more of an advantage for.
I mean, I think it's an advantage for Texas in the fact that Quinn Ewers is back.
Yeah, I mean,
if we say that it's an advantage that you get your starting quarterback back, but you could say it's an advantage that Hawkins gets a week of practice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They needed a whole another week for their true freshman quarterback. Also, first time that's happening on the OU side in the Texas OU game. They'll be starting a true freshman at QB. No, I don't know who the advantage goes to there. I think it depends on how you manage it as a coach and how you manage that bye week and what you did with your time. How about this one also about the Texas OU game? The 11 Sooners that were on the field for the game-winning touchdown against Texas last season, not one of them will suit up in the Cotton Bowl on Saturday. Not one player that was on that offense. That's crazy. Not because a lot of them are hurt, actually. The wide receivers, you got your top five wide receivers, including the starters, are out for Oklahoma.
Jeez.
So they will be starting their 6th, 7th, and 8th best wide receivers against a top 5 secondary in the country right now. Yeah, I like Texas' chances in that matchup. I just think, I don't. If Texas gets beat by these wideouts, I don't even know what to tell you. If they're getting beat, consistently, of course they can make a play. I'm not saying they're not going to make a play here or there, but if they're able to beat Texas DBs consistently with their 6th, 7th, and 8th wideouts, then Texas got some issues in the secondary. Remember, they haven't really been tested in the secondary, but they have passed every test with flying colors, right? They look fantastic, but they haven't. Here's a stat to show you how little the Texas pass defense has been tested. So Oklahoma has 20. I think they have 20 plus yard pass. Sorry, they got 8 20 plus yard pass plays on the season. So they got only 8 passes of 20 plus yards on the season. There are 6 teams with fewer 20 plus yard pass plays. 2 of them are Michigan and ULM. Yeah, so you face 3 of the most vertically challenged offenses in college football. I'm not making it up. Like literally, you face 3 of the worst passing offenses in college football. They just can't throw it to save their life. So your secondary, which is good, but how good is it? Untested, we don't really know. Yeah, and by the way, Oklahoma won't test it either. They just don't have the personnel really. to try to test it. All right, so there you go. Speaking of being tested, I threw this out there earlier, but Texas offensive plays when trailing in 2024, zero. And zero offensive plays Texas run when trailing so far this year. Will they trail in this game at all? I don't know. I don't think so. I feel right now like they're still not going to trail in this game at all. That would be crazy. The other teams who haven't ran an offensive play trailing this year, Indiana and Army. Indiana and Army. Indiana, you got to start paying attention to Indiana, man.
Indiana's good. Hey, Army Navy is going to be that. That's right now. Are they're both teams still undefeated?
I believe you were correct about that. And looking very different than the old Army Navy squads back in the day, too. So, no, you're right about that. Interesting stats and facts there. All right, we come back. We'll get into the game last night. We'll talk a little bit about the 49ers and them getting back on the winning track. And we'll also talk Texas, Oklahoma, as we always do, breaking it down. It's 8:02 and OU still sucks. And we'll be right back here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Freak Flag Feel Good, Fake It Till You Make It. Ric Flair, woo! Football 512 State Fair Street Fight Friday edition of the Rodcast. And that's 512 means my man Patrick, the co-host of the show, is playing jams from local bands and artists who you have a chance to see live right here in the ATX. Patrick, let us know how we can see these very talented human beings.
This is the West Texas Exiles, and they are playing Saturday at Saxon Pub.
All right, there you go. Patrick always hooking us up. So we appreciate him hooking us up on a 512 Friday. We also appreciate him hooking us up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is already posted at the Horn ATX on X. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll of the day. How many points will Texas score against OU? Right now, we gave you 0 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and 31 plus. Right now, 31 plus getting the predominant edge of the vote, 70% for 31 plus. People think Texas will be able to put up some points against OU. Second place in that poll is 28% for 21 to 30. And then looks like we got like a vote for 11 to 20 and no votes for 0 to 10.
A couple of Sooners probably voting on that 11 to 20.
The Sooners aren't even voting for 0 for 10?
No, I think they're realistic. I mean, I got told them to 0. I mean, 0 to 10. I mean, I think they're somewhat. They're not delusional. But yes, but still, I mean, 21 to 30. You know that if the Oklahoma defense makes plays, yeah, they can hold Texas to under 30 points. I just don't know if the offense is going to help the defense out enough for them to stay fresh enough to make plays for 4 quarters. So how basically when we asked the question earlier, and I was shout out to Fancy Boots via Twitter because she's the one that asked me, and I really hadn't thought about it. Will Texas trail in this game? I mean, I don't know, and right now it doesn't feel like they will, but that seems arrogant and cocky that Texas won't trail this game. But they haven't trailed running any offensive play this year though. So they haven't had to run an offensive play while behind so far this year. I don't know if that's going to happen in this game, considering how bad the opposing Oklahoma offense is. A good question. I got them in 31. I got them in 31 plus. I think most of the voters do too. Yeah, 70% of the people voting got the logo and scoring 31 points against the Sooners. And that's a good defense. That's a really good defense. But I don't think it's a knock on the defense. I think it's a knock on the team overall.
Yes.
Not the defense.
I agree. I just thought maybe it would be a little bit, a few more worry warts in the crowd, but no. People going in. People feeling good. Texas high strings.
Yes, they're feeling confident going to Friday. We have not been this confident as a fan base on a Friday before Texas OU in what, probably maybe 10, 15 years or something. Maybe that Texas has been this confident going to a Texas OU game. It's been a while. Texas has been this confident going to a Texas OU game. Yeah. Right? Maybe 05, probably. I don't know if you felt this confident in 08, 09. Maybe it's 05 is when the last time. Maybe you got to go back 20 years.
Yeah, it could be.
Texas, last time Texas
that feels like OU's down enough.
Mm-hmm.
That you can go in there. Yeah. And what's funny is this isn't the most down because the defense is still really good. It's just the offense looks so bad and had so many injuries to the wide receiver that it starts to look like it's. But I mean, as much as it is, there is still the fact of there is somewhat of an unknown at quarterback.
And I mean, well, a couple of years ago, you did beat them 49-0.
You did?
That's because they had nothing at quarterback, right? They had injury. They were injury riddled. They didn't even have actual capable, competent quarterback play at that time. I think that's why Texas ended up blowing them out and shutting them out in that game. So that's so I don't even know if you were this confident going into that game. I mean, we were really confident going that game, but I think there was a hope that they were still being very coy and playing the quarterback status close to the vest. So we didn't know. I don't think it was the last minute, the day of. I think we found out who the starting quarterback was going to be, and then we found out that they were going to be SOL. So I think it's just been a while since Longhorn fans have been this confident. And usually by the time I get to Friday, I can work myself into an anxious frenzy about all the ways this could go wrong. And I haven't been able to do that either because there's so many different. There's only 1 or 2 ways Oklahoma wins this thing. And they're 25 ways Texas can win this thing.
Yeah, no, it is. And I mean, we don't know what happens this weekend. I can tell you next week will be a shock to us because it'll be the first time all season where we'll walk into the week and be like, okay,
Yeah.
This is we can completely talk ourselves into it.
Agreed.
Because pretty much this whole season, we felt, even the Michigan game, we felt really good going into it, and correctly so. So it's been that this whole season has felt really, really good. And you know, you could beat Oklahoma 49-0 again, and you're still going to walk into Georgia next week and have it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll see what they go through. I think the run game, watching that, is going to be what Jaden Blue does, how he responds to a 2-fumble game against Oklahoma. Man, that's going to be.
That is big.
That's big for Texas this week. That's big for Texas next week. That's big for Texas all season.
I think I can say right now confidently that Longhorn fans are going to be more anxious and paranoid about facing Arkansas and A&M than they are about this matchup right now.
I think you're right. I think you're 100% right.
Right? It's weird to say it. Like I said, that's why I feel arrogant saying it, but I feel like they're going to be more paranoid because you got to go to their place, and those teams have shown that they are better than anticipated and exceeding expectations right now. And they've got better offenses. As simple as that, they probably be able to score on you when I don't know how this Sooner team is going to move the football and score.
No, and I mean, in all reality, in that too, is, I mean, it just feels like they had the neutral site for this, not going on the road, and then it just feels like everything is falling into place right now for Texas so far, that there isn't any of that. But I'm with you. I think once we get to those other games, it's going to become a little bit more. There's a little bit more of the unknown. You've been playing OU. You haven't played Arkansas. You played them once a couple of years ago. You haven't played A&M in forever. It's a little bit more of that unknown in there.
It's crazy. I know it's crazy. I say it's crazy to feel this way going into this game. I'm anxious that I'm not anxious.
It's been that way all season, hasn't it? And as long as the players don't buy into this, we're fine.
Yes. I agree.
We can buy into it all day long, but they can't buy into it.
They cannot buy into it. No,
they need David.
Every opponent is the standard is what they should be playing to anyway. They didn't play to that last week.
The David Benda. I don't know what a favorite is. What you need, that mindset.
Yeah. What does that mean? That was brilliant because I know he was acting because I know he knows what the favorite is. But man, that was well done. I mean, that was some quality acting right there, my man David Benda. What's the favorite? What are you talking about?
Gambling. I don't do gambling. That's illegal.
No, David Bender's got a future, man. Potentially broadcasting somehow because I think he's a funny dude. Okay, that's the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Thank you there, Patrick. Of course, we'll get back to talking Texas, Oklahoma here in just a second. We'll get into the game last night between the 49ers and the Seahawks. 49ers get back on the winning track. But before we do any of that, let's get updated, let's get educated, let's get informed on all the top stories today with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB playoffs, the Yankees advanced to ALCS with a 3-1 win over the Royals last night. Garrett Cole pitched 7 innings, allowing 1 run, and Giancarlo Stanton continued his hot streak with another RBI in the game. The Guardians got a 5-4 win over the Tigers to force a deciding Game 5 on Saturday. David Fry came in to pinch hit in the 7th and swung the game with 3 RBIs in his 2 at-bats. Tonight, the Padres and Dodgers finished their series in a Game 5 with Yu Darvish facing Yoshi Yamamoto. In college football, some big games of the week include number 9 Ole Miss at number 13 LSU, number 4 Penn State taking on USC, number 2 Ohio State against number 3 Oregon, and of course number 1 Texas at number 18 Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. Coach Sark officially stated that Quinn Ewers would start the game for the Longhorns after missing the last few weeks due to an abdominal injury. Kickoff is at 2:30 at the Cotton Bowl. And in the NFL, the 49ers regained their lead in the NFC West with a 36-24 win over the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football. Seattle fought back in the second half from down 22, down 6 with the ball when Geno Smith threw his second interception of the game to help seal the deal for the 49ers. This weekend, the Texans traveled to New England to take on the Patriots, with Drake May getting his first start, and the Cowboys face the Lions, with Dallas still dealing with a number of injuries on the defensive line. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines there. Just looking at the Texas, Oklahoma, the availability report from both of these teams, you see that the top basically 5 wide receivers for the Oklahoma Sooners are going to be out. Deion Burks was reported by Pete Thamel. He's not going to play, even though he was questionable on the last availability report. Pete Thamel's reporting he's not going to play. He's going to be out. Then, of course, Andrew Anthony, Nick Anderson, Jalil Farouk, and Jaden Gibson. Those guys have been unavailable for most of the season. So, yeah, wide receivers 6, 7, and 8 will be hoping to make some plays against that Texas defense, one of the best defenses in the country. And then you look at the DBs. They got 2 DBs that are out as well, Gentry Williams and Kendall Doby. One of those guys is playing significant snaps at corner for him. So one of your starting DBs is basically going to be out for that game too. We haven't talked a lot about that, but that's also something that we got to keep up with. Texas punter actually is going to be out for this game or is questionable for this game. And so they have some questions, some uncertainty about punter actually.
They do. They have a backup punter though. So.
They have a backup punter. Yeah, we don't. Nobody knows how good the backup punter is. We haven't seen the kicking game really much anyway this year. So the hope is that the punter will be a non-factor, as they have been non-factors all year long, and the kicking game for the most part, because you're scoring touchdowns. So something to keep in mind there with the injury report. And something we always do in a thought experiment we do before the game is how many of the guys on the opposing roster would basically be getting playing time for Texas or would be starting for Texas. Like, how would that work? And we've been doing it for, for some of the obviously teams that have a huge talent disparity, or Texas has a huge talent advantage over. But for this Oklahoma game, I'll say that if you're looking at the offense, there's not one, since all the wide receivers are out for Oklahoma and they're starting a true freshman quarterback. I don't know if there's one, and this is rare because usually the O-line has a few of them. I don't know if there's one player that you would switch out and say, oh no, that Sooner offensive player is better than the Texas, basically than the Texas equivalent of that player. Like their running back, I would take their running back over the Texas running back, or I'd take their left guard over Texas left guard. I don't know if there's one player on that Oklahoma offense that I would take over the same player, player at that position for Texas. I don't know if there's not one. I don't know if there's when was the last time we were able to say that? I mean, we have no respect for Oklahoma as a program to know they have good players. Hell, half of them from Texas. And yet not one of those guys, I think, would be able to slap a Texas player. That's how bleak it is offensively. That's an offensive identity crisis. Defensively, they got like 4 probably defensively. Danny Stutzman's a stud at linebacker. He'd be started here. They got their linebackers actually are pretty good. Samuel Omasigo. I'm sure I might have messed his name up, but he actually is a really good player too. There's also the leader in sacks. Matter of fact, he's got 5 sacks in the last 5.5 sacks actually in the last 3 games. Are Mason Thomas, and he's outside. He's like an outside linebacker for him. But all 5.5 of his sacks have come in the last 3 games. Like he's just going on a run here, and maybe it's just he's just starting to feel it. He's a really good player that can make some plays for Texas, or could maybe slab a Texas linebacker because he's a playmaker. Billy Bowman's a really good player on defensive safety. They'll play on Sundays for them. Robert Spears Jennings, another safety for them, really good player. So there are probably 4, 5 Oklahoma Sooners on defense that you could swap out, that you could obviously place in that kind of hypothetical thought experiment, but not any on offense. Not one. There's not one that I would swap on offense. And that is rare. Usually there's, a few, especially on the offensive line. Not the case in this matchup for Texas. All right. We'll get back to Texas versus Oklahoma matchup, because we're going to hear from Steve Sarkisian. And as we hear from Sark, we'll continue to break things down. But let's talk about the game last night. 49ers almost. They were really close once again to blowing a double-digit lead in the second half of a game. And I don't know, for some reason, this has become, a thing with the 49ers. That would have been their third if they had blown that double-digit lead to the Seahawks. That would have been their third this season. And people are starting to keep up with it. Shando's got way too many of those blown double-digit leads in the second half. Hell, he's got a couple in the Super Bowl, guys.
Yeah.
Against Patrick Mahomes. Remember, he had double-digit leads on that dude. in the second half, and ended up obviously losing that game. And of course, everybody knows about he was the offensive coordinator for the Falcons against the Patriots. We get it. But they didn't lose that game. They ended up holding on to that win with a interception by Renardo Green, and then their four-string running back Isaac. I'm sure I'm gonna butcher his name, Gorindo, but he ended up pulling off a 76-yard run and pretty much sealed the deal for the 49ers, who at one point had a 23-3 lead and ended up letting the Seattle Seahawks come back in that game. And they sparked that comeback with a 96-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. That was really cool. I hadn't seen one yet with the new kickoff format. And then that 94-yard touchdown drive by Geno Smith, engineered by him, and that ended up getting them right back in the game. And they had a chance to take the lead, actually, early on in the fourth quarter before Shano and the 49ers put their foot on the throat. So maybe the 49ers, maybe they're starting to find their groove again, but they got some issues identity-wise with their red zone offense, because they were 29th in red zone offense going into that game. They got some issues figuring out who they are without Christian McCaffrey, because he was such a unique piece. And yeah, they're on their four-string running back. Remember, no Christian McCaffrey, no Elijah Mitchell. Jordan Mason left that game with a shoulder injury. Now they're four-string running back. And something tells me if this dude starts, 2-3 more games for him, he'll end up with a 100-yard game with his resume somehow, because that Shanahan.
He had what, 99 in this one or something like that?
Because of that 76-yard, yeah, he was damn close.
He got
I see, right, man. So I guess he basically already got one on his resume. That Shanahan block team is just crazy. Hell, and also another thing that I thought was really cool: Deebo Samuel, first player in NFL history with, all right, they say first receiver in NFL history with 20 touchdown runs and 20 touchdown receptions. That essentially that encapsulates Shanahan's system in a nutshell. They put him in the backfield a lot too in that game. And the crazy thing about Deebo Samuel and him splitting time at wide receiver and running back, he doesn't work out at running back at all. He works out at wide receiver in practice. And he's just such a natural runner with the football that he just finds they basically goes to because of the meetings. So he knows where he's supposed to run and where the hole is and what the objective is of the run play. He does not practice with the running backs though. He's just a natural runner with the football. Isn't that freaky? Just freaky, dude. All right, we come back. We'll get into some other freaky stuff. We'll get into Texas, Oklahoma. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about their upcoming opponent, the Sooners, and we'll also dive into some other news, notes, and nuggets from around the college football world. All of that and more when we return right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the Horn.
All right, back on the Rodcast. Rod had to step out for just a minute, so we will just start getting into some of the Steve Sarkisian press conference happening yesterday. He spoke to the media as we get ready for this big Texas OU matchup. Of course, the biggest piece of the media availability was he did announce that Quinn would be the starter coming back from injury. Here's Sark announcing that real quick for you.
Start Saturday. I'm going to go backwards. That was the easy answer.
So easy one there. Quinn Ewers going to get the start. We figured that from last week. We figured we were going to be going into this game having Quinn Ewers as the starter. I guess he just didn't want to push it too much. Maybe make OU have to sweat a little bit. The Arch Manning was going to be in there, but Quinn Ewers will be getting the start. And Sark was asked about Quinn Ewers in his first appearance in the game. And we talked so much this week about the importance of Quinn Ewers' experience in this game. We talk about his experience against good defenses overall, being able to pick them apart, make the right decisions. Where Arch would have some advantages being able to chunk the ball downfield. We've seen he's been able to do it. Quinn Ewers still can put the ball downfield on this defense. He might be able to do it a little bit easier too. They just don't have a great backup of their defense. However, he's got a ton of experience in this game, and Sark was asked about it, and the question starts off with Sark was asked, they started the same year, which Sark was there a year before, but this is Sark when he was asked about Quinn Ewers' first year, now getting a little bit more experience and why that's important in these games.
And my first one was with Casey, and he's on the other team now. Yeah.
2021. So
yes.
Quinn then.
Quinn's was a little unique in that he was coming off the injury, but I knew how much this game had meant to him growing up right in South Lake, and having been to the game and sitting in the stands watching this game. My big thing for him was just relax and go have fun, and go play ball. And we had a pretty good team, and we were playing pretty good at that juncture of the season. And so I thought he did that. He had a heck of a game. I joked with him in the middle of the game. He threw one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen. He was trying to throw the ball away, and it kind of just fluttered in the air. And I actually thought it hit the wire from the TV camera but it didn't. So we're able, I think that's one thing Quinn and I are able to do that a lot of times doesn't get seen. Like, we're able to laugh things off. And I think that that's important for a guy like him, and really for Arch for that matter. Like, we're a very intense quarterback room, and we coach them hard, but we also have the ability to kind of laugh at ourselves and have fun with things. And that in and of itself, I think in games like this is really helpful when the intensity is so high around you, the emotions are so high around you. The quarterback has got to be that steady C. He has got to be that even keel guy that can remain calm and keep his poise and composure in the midst of all the intensity.
So a big part of what Texas is going to be able to have to do is for Quinn Ewers to be able to keep that composure, for Quinn Ewers to be able to keep that intensity and going forward. And part of that is going to be able to stay in front of the chains, be able to keep moving the football, be able to pick up yardage. And a lot of that's going to be on this offensive line for Texas. That's probably one of your key matchups is the O-line for Texas versus the D-line for Oklahoma. They're going to be able to bring some different pressures, bring some rushes, and not only for stopping the run stop and trying to get the ball moved downfield with Jaden Blue and Trey Wisner and trying to get into favorable positions where maybe you can take a couple more shots downfield on this Oklahoma team. You're also going to want to make sure you protect Quinn, not only just coming off an injury, but that's how mistakes get made is when you see pressure. It's something that we've talked about a lot with Quinn Ewers is his ability to be able to feel the rush and feel that pressure on him. He's still not great at it. He's gotten a little bit better. But Sark talked about the OU pass rush and what this Texas O-line needs to do to be able to slow down that pass rush enough to get some yardage. And you want to be able to have Quinn put them on their heels and not be able to pass rush as much, have to use more of those resources back trying to defend big plays over the top from the passing game. You want them to have to defend being able to spread it wide. You'll probably see a lot of screens and getting the ball out to Jaden Blue in the passing game to make them spread out a little bit more, not allow them to sit and just be able to blitz on Quinn. But here's Sark talking about the OU pass rush and what the O-line for Texas has to do for it.
Yeah, they're a great pass rush team. I think, one, they've got good players, and two, they've got good scheme. And then in 3, they play hard. They play with really good effort. And so you put all 3 of those things together, they do a heck of a job of getting to the quarterback. And because of that, they do a heck of a job of creating havoc, which I think leads to the opportunistic defense that they have where they create turnovers. So a lot of what they do defensively starts up front. And that's kind of been a staple of Coach Venable's defenses throughout the years, regardless of the school he was at. It's always started up front. And this group's not much different than that. They do a heck of a job of creating pressure internally. They do a good job coming off the edge. They do a good job with their pressure packages and a variety of those that they have. So there's layers to what they do. And we know we've got a work cut out for us this week with that.
So there's layers of what they can do. They're going to bring different types of blitzes, try and show different things. You have to do whatever you can do to try and create those turnovers against Texas, against Quinn Ewers, against Jaden Blue. You have to push if you're Oklahoma to try and create those turnovers. And pressure is pretty much the main ability they have to do it. Their secondary is a little beat up as well. That's not going to scare you as much as that D-line, some of those players, those linebackers, if they're coming after Quinn and trying to get fumbles, trying to get him to throw off-balance throws. We know Quinn has trusted his arm more than he should have at points. They're going to be trying to push that. And on the other side of the ball, you have to then try and bring pressure against their quarterback and Michael Hawkins. However, he's a mobile quarterback. He's young. He's now had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. He is jumping from his first start to his second start. What is he going to be able to do? Is he going to be able to hurt you? And especially, is he going to be able to pick up yardage on broken plays and put them into favorable downage? Is he going to be able to put them into favorable yardage on 2nd and 3rd down, put them in a 2nd and 4 or a 3rd and 2 because he's able to get outside because those passing lanes aren't tight enough on him? And if you put in, I know a lot of people want to see Colin Simmons play a lot. For a young defensive end like that, especially one with really good BGO, sometimes you get a little antsy and you jump around and all they have to do is put their hand on one shoulder and they can lead you just far enough off of that line where Hawkins has a clear path to go pick up 5 or 6 yards. And it's not going to kill you overall, but it's going to keep the ball out of your offense's hand. It's going to keep the momentum in favor of Oklahoma. Here's Sark when he was asked about the rush lane integrity and how important it is, talking about it with a mobile quarterback. And Sark even goes into a little bit more detail about the types of mobile quarterbacks, the ones who can scramble and throw, the ones who can type and scramble and run. And he's saying Michael Hawkins can do both. It'll be a tall test for a very young quarterback if he can do that. But here's Sark talking about the importance of the integrity of the rush lanes for the Texas defense.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of layers to this, because I think coverages can dictate maybe how your rush lanes go. When you're playing zone coverage, sometimes you can be a little more aggressive with trying to really rush the quarterback because the majority of the eyes of the defenders in the secondary are on the quarterback and they can react if he does escape the pocket and you can get him on the ground. Where you have to be really careful with your rush lanes is when you're playing man coverage. Because when you're in man coverage and you get out of a rush lane and you give the quarterback somewhere to escape, when he goes to run, all of those guys in the secondary's backs are turned to the quarterback because they're guarding somebody, and now that can create, longer yardage type runs. The other way you can do that is to play man, try to really rush the quarterback and have a spy. Where you can keep somebody's eyes on the quarterback. And when he does go to scramble, you can try to get him on the ground. And so, I think one of the keys in games like this is you have to continue to mix your looks, right? You can't just keep throwing a fastball. You got to throw a curve. You got to throw a changeup. You got to keep switching it up, or a quarterback can find that rhythm. The guys that drop back and then extend to scramble as opposed to guys that drop back to extend to throw. It's pretty, I don't want to say it's easy when they're one or the other. When it's really hard is when they do both. Because now players are really compromised of, do I come up and try to get them on the ground or do I stay in coverage? And so those guys are really the most dangerous of that because they can do either or. And I actually think Michael Hawkins is one of those guys. He has plenty of arm talent that can make those throws when plays get extended. But clearly he's very dangerous with his legs when he tucks it and runs.
Some good stuff there from Sark talking about those pass rush lanes. It's going to be huge because, you haven't been great in the pass rush. If you're able to get that lead early, it changes a lot of things. We saw that against Mississippi State. This team hasn't really been great in sacking the quarterback, but once they were able to pull away there in the fourth quarter against Mississippi State, all of a sudden they pick up 6 sacks in that game, and they're able to get going downhill. I think if you're able to get to him early, I'd change up what you're throwing at him. I'd change up the looks of blitzes. I'm a big fan with young quarterbacks trying to go right at their face, trying to make them have to make that decision, because I think you're able to get them a little bit more off center. You're trying to make them think about the rush. And if they can't see it coming, you may be able to get that. You may be able to get the ball out. You may be able to get a fumble, but you have to actually finish that, as opposed to maybe them warming out of it. Versus if he sees somebody coming right down him at the barrel, if he sees someone coming right at his face, that may cause him to try and make a throw quickly. It'll throw off his footwork. It's very hard to stay calm in those moments, especially when you're talking about playing in the biggest game of your career so far, of your life so far, playing in this big OU-Texas rivalry, playing the Red River rivalry. It's just going to be really tough to keep your composure. And Sark actually was asked about that as well, talking about kind of seeing if the team's locked in, seeing how he can judge if he feels that the team is in the right place to uphold the standard of Texas, seeing if the team is in the right place to be able to keep this path on for Texas. Here's Sark talking about what he sees during the week to see if this team is still locked in.
Well, I mean, some simple things I look for, like when I see him at lunch or when I see him walking through the building, what are they talking about? Right? Are they talking about, hey, how we're going to play a certain coverage, or I can't wait for Sark to call this, or man, I was studying number 5 this week. Here's what, when they're talking about football, generally that gives me a sense and a feel of like, okay, they're engaged in what we have going. I think the other thing I look at is the energy that we bring every morning. We start with these guys every day at 7:15. What kind of energy do they have in the team meeting when we walk in? What kind of energy do they have when they take the field at practice for pre-practice? What does stretch feel like and look like? And so all those things kind of give me a sign of like, man, these guys are engaged. And then ultimately it comes down to, how do we practice? Do we have the right mental intensity to reduce the number of missed assignments? Are we finishing runs? Are we finishing blocks? Is it sound loud on defense because we're communicating at such a high level? Right? There's a lot of layers to that. But all adds up to your point. It's that, are we preparing the way that is of importance that we value? We value preparation. We value practice, because I think that's what instills belief and confidence in what we're trying to go do.
I love that, Sark's able to tell when his team is locked in, and they should be locked in, right? You're coming off a bye week. You ended up leapfrogging a couple of teams to become number 1 during that bye week. And during the bye week, you saw in SEC play, you saw multiple upsets, like huge upsets, generational upsets. Vandy beating Alabama, Arkansas beating Tennessee. And it should have served as a wake-up call for everybody in that program, everybody across the country, that if you are not playing to a certain standard, that if you are not focused, if you are distracted, if you have self-inflicted wounds and turnovers, and you play sloppy football, Vandy loses to Bama. Just that it can happen. Mm-hmm. It could happen to you. Mississippi State could have beat you. If you would have had, a couple of more turnovers in that game, who knows how things could have gone. And I think that's why I'm confident that Texas is going to come out and they'll be locked in. It was a perfect time for the bye week, perfect time for Texas to come off of that first SEC game against Mississippi State, playing the way they did. I just think the chances of them coming out distracted and coming out a little bit lackluster and a little dazed, I just don't see it with this group. I think them coming out with that hair on fire. I think Texas is going to start fast, start aggressive. If anything, they may be a little too emotionally charged. I think that may work against them.
Yeah, but yeah, it is. It's a perfect week with, they asked him player availability. They asked everyone who was there. I think it's 7 different players were part of it. And they asked, did you watch the games? They all said they watched it. So it wasn't just they heard about it. It wasn't, well, we played a game, we went hung, and then the next day I saw the highlights. They watched that team lose. They watched Alabama from basically beginning to end get outplayed by another team. And
I just know the team, Vandy.
By
Not just another
Vandy.
team, by
By
Vandy.
Vandy, you saw that. And then the good part for Texas on this and the other flip is Oklahoma don't think they're Vandy.
I know.
So
Wow.
so there's a point for Oklahoma where they don't get that little boost of, man, anybody could beat anybody because they think they're Alabama.
Yeah. Damn. You're right about that.
I mean, they're a ranked
right.
team.
Yeah.
They're not, so there's a certain amount where they don't necessarily get that same boost of we get to be world beaters. So I thought it's a little interesting because they don't even get that boost of it, the psychology boost. Mm-hmm. They get the boost of like, oh, well, anything can happen, but we're supposed to win. Even though they're two touchdown dogs, they still think they're supposed to win because they're Oklahoma. And I mean, that's why you go there.
Blue blood. Yeah, you're a blue blood. You ain't Vandy. Vandy, yeah, they can play that role. You're a blue blood.
No, you go to Vandy for the education. You go to OU to play football.
You damn right.
Yeah. There's nobody went to OU for the education. I don't.
Hey, well, I'm sure there are some people who decide to go there for the education.
I'm just kidding.
But I would say very few, athletes went there, and education tipped the scales for them. I'll agree with you on that too. Now, but yeah, I mean that this past weekend was the first time in SEC history that 2 top 5 SEC teams failed to unranked opponents on the same day. It was, trust me, it was for those guys, I bet it was like jarring. That was probably just mind blowing. Like, dude, are you watching what's happening? Like, and I'm sure that they were either watching games together or group, chats and group text about, hey man, we got to make sure, like Coach was just talking about, we need to make sure we're buttoned up. We got to make sure that we are focused, playing to a certain standard. I remember watching some of those games when I was playing, and we sit around and watch the games, and all we did was talk ball and compare the situations to our own situations.
Well, and
that's basically what you do.
And we just heard from Sark there. Sark talked at the beginning of that clip. He goes, when I walk around at lunch and they're talking football, that's how I know they're logged in, because they're talking football. They're not talking about Call of Duty or Fortnite or something else. Or, all right, man, we at the party last night. They're talking about football, and we know that's how I know my team's locked in, is because that's all they're eat, sleep, drink,
agreed,
everything is football.
It's a great point, because obviously he walked by and some of those conversations are strange. It's like, oh man, they're talking about all kind of wild stuff.
Yeah.
But now, it should be about ball, and I think that's what you're going to get from this team. So I expect them to come in locked in. Oklahoma, like I said, I don't know Oklahoma. I don't know that team as well. I know that program's got a lot of pride. I know that. So I expect the first quarter for Oklahoma to come out guns a-blazing. Like, I expect them to come out throwing haymakers, because I don't know if I think Brett Venables understands I got to stay in this game early and get in it early. Yeah. I'm getting this fight early, because if I'm not in it early, I'm gonna be out of it early.
If we don't see a flea flicker or some sort of double reverse or something like that in the first 2 series, I will
double
be surprised.
moves. Yes,
I'll be very surprised.
A fake punt, fake something. You know what I mean? I'm with you. I think they're gonna need one of those types of plays to really snatch momentum, and also I think to instill some belief in their team. Yeah. You can say what you want. You're missing your top 5 wide receivers. The teams, they say, I played on a team in the locker room. We're not delusional in the locker room. All right. We know who we are. You know if you're on a bad team. You know if, oh man, I started quarterbacks down. It ain't looking good. I've been watching. We watch film. I've been watching film. We know when we got a bad game plan and stuff. Trust me, players know when there's a bad game plan or a bad play called. They said, we talk about it all the time. Once I said, like, man, that was a terrible play, coach. Yeah, I don't know what coach was thinking on that one. I don't know what he was thinking.
I will tell everybody this too. Don't go to the bathroom after a 3rd down stop against Oklahoma. This game is going to go for it on 4th down a lot.
I agree. They should.
Because you have to.
They should.
You have to any chance you get, because it's the only way. Texas getting a stop on 3rd and 4th down doesn't necessarily change momentum as much as it would change momentum for Oklahoma to pick up a 4th down and keep the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when you see it, natural instinct is 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. Well, they're not going for that. 3rd and 4 at the 50-yard line. I think they understand that, unless you're giving them the ball at the 20, you might go for it. You push it back. Look, they're going to score. They're going to.
Mississippi State did. Mississippi State went for it like they're on 30 something.
Yeah, they knew.
Jeff Levy understood the assignment. Like, no, I cannot give Texas the ball early. Otherwise, I'm going to be blown out too early. Yep. If I want to make it competitive, I need to control the ball early. I need to dominate the clock early, milk the clock early, and that's Jeff Levy did a great job of that. That's why the game plan was so good. It was all because of that first 7-minute drive is why, and he got no points out of it, but it dictated the tempo and the terms of the game and didn't allow Sark to do so. And Sark didn't get a chance to really get his complementary football blueprint working until like the fourth quarter, and then he pulled away in the fourth quarter. And if you're Brent Venables, that's all you want. So that's why I said that Mississippi, I've been saying it for a week. That Mississippi State game plan, if you're Brent Venables, that is your savior right now. That's your saving grace. If you say Mississippi State can do it, guys, we can do it. We can do that.
Yes.
Now we're gonna beat Texas, probably not, but make it competitive and do what Mississippi State did. We can do that, and that involves just what you said, Patrick. 4-down football. All right, because 3 downs to get 10 yards, that seems tough. 4 downs to get 10, I think we can do that.
4 downs to get 10 with a scrambling quarterback.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got
with some
legs.
quarterback run game in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
design runs. I told that, so I'm with you on that. And I said I think you'll see Oklahoma, in addition to them trying to take that Mississippi State game plan, which is kind of power downhill running game with that veer and shoot formational advantage, which is the wide splits of the wide receivers and that is all to take the safety out of the box so that you get a lighter box to run up against. And then I think they're going to take a couple of shots early, and you got to take shots early while Texas is aggressive, while Texas still has to respect your run game. So Texas is not going to respect your run game once they get up by 20. And, yeah, you can run it if you want to. Please just run it. We don't care. But while it's still a tight ball game, Texas will respect the run game. And while they respect the run game, that's when your flea flickers, that's when your double moves are going to work.
Yep.
They're not going to work late in the game because Texas is not going to be aggressive. They're going to be partying, looking in the stands, having a good time. Your double moves won't work because Texas will let you complete anything underneath, and they'll let you run the ball because the clock is not your friend.
Mm-hmm.
But early on, I think Texas will be aggressive. That's when the game's still tight. They'll be coming downhill like a banshee trying to stop the run. And if you're Oklahoma, that's when you throw in your concepts to counter their aggression.
Yeah.
Double moves, your out and up, your hitch and goes, your slant and goes, your stalk blocking goes, your flea flickers. I think that's when you get this. Right. And I said I would throw it out there early because it ain't gonna do you no good when you're 2 touchdowns down and start throwing flea flickers.
At least twice this season, we've seen a first quarter flea flicker against Texas. At least twice. And Michigan, I know did
it makes sense.
And then
because their defense is so aggressive.
Yeah, because they knew
so aggressive.
They know they're aggressive, and then they knew like there's only a few ways we can move the football. Again, we talked about these are some bad offenses that Texas has played, a few of these. So that was, you have to throw the ball the way you can. And we've seen it a couple times, and I would not surprise me at all if we see it again.
Didn't Texas get a pick on a flea flicker? Wasn't a pick on the flea flicker? Wasn't that one of the what is this? I thought that was an interception on the flea flicker. But I will find this. I believe there was.
It's happened at least 2, possibly 3 times already to the Texas here. So
yeah. I think I will find it. I believe, I'm not mistaken, there was an interception. Was it Javion Cole? Was it J. Cole? Not J. Cole the rapper. But
it may have been.
Because remember, he got one interception this year, and I want to say it was a flea flicker they threw late in the game because we were all talking about why would they do that late in the game. But I'll go check it. I'll make sure that I'm right about that. And I'm just not just spouting nonsense. But I think I remember that. But you're right. There have been several of those, and we predicted the one that Michigan. So I said Michigan's going to throw a flea flicker that because they had no other way to move the football.
Yeah.
And they only got like 18 yards out of it. They didn't even
I remember. Yeah, that was the short yardage flea flicker.
It was like a 16-yard.
Yeah, it was an underneath flea flicker.
It was like a
I forgot that was the under. I forgot that he looked down and was like, it's still covered.
Yeah. He's like, there's nobody open. Like, I mean, the guy underneath it, I'm not supposed to go to him. I guess I'll throw it to him. Just do the crossing route. It was like, all right, it was open, but that's not the purpose of a flea flicker. The purpose of a flea flicker is to get a bomb downfield. All right, we come back. We'll get into off the record on the other side. Oh, we got to get into this quote from Mike Elko that people are making fun of. I've heard this quote about football before, and now apparently only because it's an Aggie quoting it, people are talking trash about it and mocking him. So I don't know if I'm taking up for Elko, but we'll bring it up. We'll talk about it right here coming up on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. Mm, mm, mm. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to a little off of the record here. All right, I want to get to. I know we've been talking a lot about the Aggies, and this quote I think it's unfortunately for Aggie fans. This is a football term, like it's a football term, or at least it's a football saying that people say all the time. But apparently, when Mike Elko said it, Longhorn fans and maybe college football fans started to feel a certain way about it. Mike Elko, he was giving a speech. I think well, this is not a part of the speech, this quote, but we do have audio of him giving a speech in the locker room to his team after their last win, talking about Connor Wigman stepping up as a starter. But also in the post game, he was quoted making this quote. He said, "A mantra of the program this season is to focus on the 6 inches in front of your face." He said, if they do that when the end of the season comes, they'll lift their head up and they'll like what they see. Makes perfect sense,
Yeah,
right?
it's a
Unless
football
you have
saying. It's an old
it
football
is,
saying.
because I remember with Al Pacino in Any Given Sunday, he did the famous speech he gives toward the end of the movie, the obviously motivational speech for the team. He one line in there, he says, "And the 6 inches in front of your face." He's like yelling and screaming like Al Pacino always does. And it's like really cool, but it's a saying that if you've played football long enough, you probably had a coach that brought it up, like, "Hey man, don't look too far ahead. Just pay attention to what's in front of you, what's right in front of you. Focus on that. The 6 inches in front of your face." Well, unfortunately, the internet is undefeated, and Longhorn fans find any reason to make Aggie jokes. So now, what is the mantra for the Aggies for this 2024 season has become a joke about junk and about a lot of penis jokes thrown out there now, because 6 inches in front of your face, and people automatically goes mind in the gutter. And now the timeline after that quote is just full of, at least all the replies, just full of penis jokes. The 6 inches in front of your face.
This, first of all, we'll say this wouldn't happen if you had cheerleaders, Aggies. If you had cheerleaders, we wouldn't be making these jokes about you. The amount of times that people realize still in my life that I'm talking to someone, they go, "Do you know that the Aggies have these guys?" And I'm like, "Yes, yell leaders. I know
Yes.
they are."
Yes.
And
Yeah,
and however weird you think they are, it's weirder.
Oh no, the Aggie traditions are some of the strangest out there.
Yeah,
they're very strange.
They're
I
yes.
agree. I'm still amazed by my favorite weird Aggie tradition is humping.
But I'll tell you this:
they call it humping, and that's when they score a touchdown. They call it humping, and that I don't know why they call it that. But then they get
it's the only humping they're going to be doing that night.
Well done. We're a great comedic timing there. Good job. But no, it's a thing that they do, like to get the 12th man all pumped up. That's what I'm saying. They got a lot of weird ones like that.
No, it's because they don't allow livestock in the arena. But make Aggie jokes all day.
Exactly. But I'll say this was too easy.
I think Mike Elko needs to turn this around and get a Subway endorsement.
Oh, NIL Subway.
The
Subway 6-inch sub.
Yeah,
I like that.
Turn it around.
That's a great way to turn it around.
Look, if they sign Russell Wilson, they'll sign whoever.
They don't. They're ashamed. They're shameless.
They're shameless. They got the danger wish from Russell Wilson. They'll take Mike Elko and his 6 inches in front of his face.
That way you should. You know what? He should run with it. It was so everybody's got a great sense of humor, because everybody's making the same joke about it. 6 inches in front of your face. Like I tell my wife the same thing. You know what I mean? Like oh, they got this random, it's just easy penis jokes thrown out there. So, the Aggies, they didn't do that. That's not an Aggie thing. That's a football thing, and we're just turning it into an Aggie thing. So I'll take up for Mike Elko in that respect. I had coaches telling me that for years, and I never made a penis joke about it. I knew what they understood, they were talking about, but the internet, they got a different way of viewing things on the internet. All right, we come back. That's enough of off the record. We come back. We'll get into some NFL news, notes, and nuggets. Got to preview the Detroit Dallas game coming up. We'll also preview the Texans and their matchup coming up versus the Patriots. We'll talk about a couple of things that I think the Texans need to address. They'll also be a little shorthanded without Nico Collins. We'll talk about what that means for the offense. And of course, we'll get back to Texas-Oklahoma discussion. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Coming back on the Horn. Yeah. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a freak flag, feel good, fake it till you make it. Ric Flair, woo! 512 State Fair Street Fight Football Friday edition of the Rodcast. And 512 means that my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, he comes up with all the musically themed days of the week, by the way. But on 512 Fridays, he plays jams from local bands and artists, very talented human beings that you have a chance to catch live right here in the ATX. Who are we jamming right now, Patrick?
This is the Bright Light Social Hour, and they're playing Saturday at Cheatham Street Warehouse. If you want to stay away from the ACL Fest madness after the game, head down to San Marcos, Cheatham Street Warehouse, Bright Light Social Hour.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I was listening to it. I was like, oh, man, Jam's kind of like it. It's a little eccentric. I like that.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
No, they're a pretty cool band.
Yeah. All right. So check that out. My man Patrick always hooking you up with a topic for the Big Fat Poll today as well. And right now that is posted at the Horn ATX on X. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day.
Big Fat Poll of the day. How many points will Texas score against OU? Right now, we're at 31% at 68% of the vote. 30%, 21-30, and 11-20's got 2% of the vote. No one has voted for 0-10. Not even them Sooners believe that.
Yeah. I mean, this offense is just way too potent for that. Yeah. Also, I got them scoring over 31 too, and it's not an insult on the defense of Oklahoma's, which is a damn good defense. It's more about the lack of a complementary threat that Oklahoma poses. They don't have the offense. They're going to leave their defense on the field for way too long, exposed. And if you're on the field for that long, you're going to end up giving plays against an offense as prolific as a Texas offense. And they're not a shutdown defense anyway. They're more of just a playmaking defense. So I think you can move the football on them, but you guard against the negative plays and stuff like that. So I got them scoring like 33 or 34 usually in my predictions. They've been like 33, 34. I don't think I've gone over 35 points in a prediction yet.
And the reason I went with 31 with the plus was because right now the lines are, if you look at Vegas, they're 14-point favorites. It is a 48-point over-under, which would leave you at 31-17 for Texas to win by 14 and hit that number. So that is why we went with 31 plus. Is basically it's a cover of Vegas if they hit 31.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I actually, it makes a lot of sense. But like I said, I don't know how Oklahoma's going to score. I'm really wondering how they're going to score those 17 2 touchdowns.
I know, but that's
the $1 million question for me. It really is. I just don't see it against this defense, but we'll see. I mean, the Texas defense they have not really been tested, and I don't think they will be tested though in this game either. They're missing their top 5 wide receivers, true freshman quarterback starting for them, first time in program history that's the case. And their offense has just been bad so far this year. 101st, 100 and 106th in rushing yards per game, rushing yards and yards per carry. They're 130th in explosive play rate so far this year. That's really bad. They got, if you go look at it overall, they're 129th in third down conversion rate. They only have 8 pass plays of 20 plus yards. Only 6 teams have fewer pass plays of 20 plus yards. They're not explosive. They don't convert. They can't run the ball. Passing numbers, I mean, they're 118th in passing offense, 119th in passing yards, 121st in total offense. Guys,
no, I mean,
they're triple digits in every major relevant offensive category.
No, I mean, the only guy who's been consistent for them receiving the balls is now rumored to be likely out for the game in Burks. That's the only guy that's been remote. He's got 26 receptions on the year. Then after that, you go to the tight end who's got 18. And then Brennan Thompson has 10.
Hey, you got to worry about Brennan Thompson. You may have Casey Thompson throwing to Brennan Thompson.
Yeah, that may be he'll be last on the roster by the end of the game.
It may be. You may have a Thompson to Thompson. That's crazy. Brennan Thompson. Yeah, I've seen him play, but I didn't realize that I should have because they have so many injuries. Didn't realize he was playing that much with the Sooners. But yeah, that's in a nutshell, guys. They just don't have right now the personnel to hurt Texas offensively, and Every metric I look at, I'm trying to figure out how they're going to be able to move the football on Texas. And they're not going to be able to do it with explosive plays. Usually a team can either do it one way or the other. They're converting or explosive plays. They don't do either. So that's going to be the $1 million question: how they move the football against Texas with a young freshman quarterback. To me, it's got to be Michael Hawkins. He's got to exceed any expectations that we have for him or that the Sooners have for him. If he comes out and just has a hell of a game for a true freshman quarterback, then that may be how they generate, some offensive production. Right now, I don't see it. All right, so there you go. Topic for the big fat poll of the day. We got to talk some NFL. We'll talk Texans and their game coming up versus the Patriots. A lot of storylines there, including Nico Collins being on the IR, Drake May getting his first start. Matter of fact, we'll hear from Bobby Slowick. We got some sound from Bobby Slowick, him talking about how similar the Patriots scheme is to that Viking scheme, which they struggled with. I got some numbers about the Texans that not very complimentary numbers, but showing you that they do need to, there's some things they need to rectify. Even with Nico Collins being out, we'll talk about how that affects the offense. And, of course, Cowboys and the Detroit Lions. Not necessarily a bad matchup for the Cowboys, but definitely bad timing for the Cowboys for this Detroit Lions game. So we'll get into that and more. And there's an NFL story we got to get to. Nathaniel Hackett has officially been demoted. Remember, this was the conversation that one of the reasons that Robert Saleh had been fired was that he had planned on either firing or demoting Nathaniel Hackett from offensive coordinator duties and play calling duties. Well, that has happened. And it's official that it has happened. So Ulbrich, who's the new interim head coach for them, is already making moves. And that was the report that they were going to make some moves. So we'll talk about what that means. I mean, that's Aaron Rodgers' BFF and the curator of his offense. Now it looks like somebody else is going to be calling the shots. All right, so we'll talk about that coming up a little bit later on. But first, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB playoffs, the Yankees advanced to ALCS with a 3-1 win over the Royals last night. Garrett Cole pitched 7 innings, allowing 1 run, and Giancarlo Stanton continued his hot streak with another RBI in the game. The Guardians got a 5-4 win over the Tigers, forcing a deciding Game 5 on Saturday. David Fry came in to pinch hit in the 7th and swung the game with 3 RBIs in his 2 at-bats. Tonight, the Padres and Dodgers finished their series in a Game 5 with Yu Darvish facing Yoshi Yamamoto. In college football, some big games of the week include number 9 Ole Miss and number 13 LSU, number 4 Penn State taking on USC, number 2 Ohio State against number 3 Oregon, and, of course, number 1 Texas and number 18 Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. Coach Sark officially stated that Quinn Ewers would start the game for the Longhorns after missing the last few weeks due to an abdominal injury. Kickoff is at 2:30 at the Cotton Bowl. And in the NFL, the 49ers regained their lead in the NFC West with a 36-24 win over the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football. Seattle fought back in the second half from down 20 to down 6 with the ball when Geno Smith threw his second interception of the game to help seal the deal for the 49ers. This weekend, the Texans travel to New England to take on the Patriots, with Drake May getting his first start, and the Cowboys face the Lions, with Dallas still dealing with a number of injuries on the defensive line. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. Before we get back to Texas, Oklahoma, let's talk about the Cowboys a little bit. I think the timing's just bad for the Cowboys. Cowboys are a mash unit right now. Offensively, they got some injuries, but defensively, they've been decimated by injuries, especially at the edge position. No Michael Parsons for this Detroit Lions game. There'll be no DeMarcus Lawrence. He's on the IR. Marshawn Nealon, he's been placed on the IR as well. And, of course, we know Sam Williams didn't even start the season because he had a season-ending injury during training camp. So you'll be down to your third string edge defenders. That is not a good sign going up against a potent and physical Detroit Lions offense. And one thing about the Detroit Lions, they keep you on the field. They convert, right, at a really high level. The Detroit Lions, you can look at, have converted 14% more third down plays than their opponents. They convert as the second best in the NFL. They also have average games they played in, average a league high 129 plays in games they play in. And it's because of them. They get a lot of plays in as Detroit Lions. They get a lot of plays in wearing out your defense. They convert a lot. Hell, you just came off a perfect game for a quarterback in their last game, 18 of 18. They're just very efficient. You got to try to get off the field on Detroit just so your defense isn't exposed and exhausted. Cowboys are already dealing with depth issues. and it wasn't a short week, but kind of felt like it because that game had the rain delay and the weather delay, and the game ended up being late. And you're coming off a week like that, and a really competitive game against Pittsburgh where you're able to win it with a lot of grit and fortitude. But man, the injuries really took their toll on the Dallas Cowboys in that matchup. And now you're going up against a team in Detroit who's coming off a bye week. So they're as fresh, if not fresher, than they've been all season long, coming off the bye week. And the Cowboys have been just injury riddled, it would seem, in the last couple of weeks. So I don't like the timing of this for the Dallas Cowboys. It's going to have to be a shootout. You're dealing with a really balanced offense for Detroit. They have a run rate of 49.2%. So you're talking about really close to being a 50% run pass ratio for them. And I got a feeling they're going to run the rock at the Dallas Cowboys. Why wouldn't they? I think they're going to be running at the edges. And, you're in your interior D-line, you're healthier. But remember, your interior D-line was the weakness of your defense. So you got the weakest part of your defense that's healthy. And then the strength of your defense was probably your edges. You're down to your third string edge players. So your defensive line, I just don't know if they're going to be able to hold up the point of attack. I like what you got in the back seven matching up against Detroit because you're probably getting some of Deron Bland. So I don't know if he's going to start, but they say he's going to at least give you some quality snaps in that game. So he's making his way back. Kalen Carson, there is a high likelihood he may be coming back for you too in the secondary. And, Trevon Diggs and Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson, Eric Kendricks, DeMarvion Overshown, those guys I think are pretty steady. And I think you actually match up well with your back seven if you end up getting some of those pieces back at the cornerback spot opposite Trevon Diggs. But I don't know about your D-line versus their O-line. That I think that's a Grand Canyon size gap, talent gap you're dealing with just because of the injuries y'all had. Usually you would match up pretty well with Detroit, but that worries me for the Cowboys. And if you go look at, Detroit so far, I mean, like I said, they offer balance. You don't have any balance. The Cowboys have, if you're looking at overall, the Cowboys, 77% of their yards have come via passing. Like 77% of their total yards have come via the pass. That is the highest rate in the league. And so they're a bit predictable now, too. So Rico Dotto coming off his best game with the Cowboys. That's going to be big because they need some balance in the offense. They need to have just a little bit of, semblance of a running game. And then does Jalen Tolbert pick up where he left off with Brandon Cooks now being on the IR? They need him to really solidify himself as a weapon so that teams don't just take away CeeDee Lamb. So it's a bad timing game for the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys will probably lose this game. They can make it competitive, but they need big Dak energy. And, once again, it's going to be Dak putting on the cape to keep you in a game and to help you win a game. And he did that in the Pittsburgh game, right? Yeah, he made some mistakes, but hell, Dak brought you back multiple times to have to score go-ahead touchdowns to win that game.
Yeah, including the finisher to Jalen Tolbert. Wait a minute, Jalen Tolbert, if he keeps progressing and plays well again this week with Brandon Cooks now on the injury reserve, if Jalen Tolbert steps up as that number 2 wide receiver and just takes a little bit of that pressure off of CeeDee Lamb to not allow them just to completely focus every bit of effort onto CeeDee Lamb, that opens up CeeDee Lamb a little bit more. That opens up the passing offense a lot more, just like Rico Dotto. If he's able to run for 80-plus yards in this game, and then that changes a lot. And you're going into a bye week after this. So you do get a lot of guys a little bit more rest after this. You'll hopefully have Micah Parsons back after this. I'm assuming they're not going to push back. Deron Bland should be back after this as well. If those guys play, they probably won't play a ton of snaps. So if they do come back, they'll be back, though, for week 8 or week 9. And San Francisco, they'll be in that game. But this is a big matchup, too, to see what those Cowboys players like Rico Dotto, what this interior D-line looks like, to see in your bye week, do you go out, and now that you're getting a little bit close to that trade deadline and you're in your bye week, is this the right time to try and pull the trigger and bring somebody in? We know Jerry said he's not. I refuse to believe that Jerry Jones has not talked to anybody and has not at least gone out and done his fair work to see who's out there and what they could make a deal with. I just don't. I don't think he's that inept. I think he's inept in a lot of ways, but I think someone in that organization has done the work, right? Because they're not a bad enough team to believe that he's that inept.
And Stephen
but-
Jones kind of hinted at that. He said
Yeah.
they basically there's no urgency to it, but that they have done their due diligence. That
But yeah, your
they've been
bye
in
week,
communication. With
your
teams.
bye week is usually a really good week to add somebody in because you get that extra time and practice. You can kind of teach things a little bit more. So that'll be the big one. But if they get Rico Dowdle, he has a big game. It's less likely. And if Zeke, we'll see if Zeke plays in this game and what he does. But he's looked worse and worse every single game of the season.
No surprise.
So, and we're not surprised, but that is one. Even if Rico Dowdle's doing okay, do you want to add another back? Doesn't have to be a great back, just another back to try and bring in two guys that are around that skill level and have a little rotation that you feel confident to be able to run the ball 20 times a game instead of having to run it 10 because you just don't have the backs.
I think Dowdle had 20 rushes, if I'm not mistaken, in that last game versus Pittsburgh. That means he's the lead back in that committee. 87 rushes. I mean, that 87 rushing yards, excuse me. That's not bad. That's about what you want from Rico Dowdle. And he gave you 27 receiving yards on top of that. So that's 100 yards from scrimmage for him on 22 touches. That's good production from him. And you got Jalen Tolbert with 7 receptions, 87 yards. And don't forget, Kevontae Turpin actually contributed as well. He had 4 receptions on 5 targets for 50 yards. That's not bad either for Kevontae Turpin, because essentially he's working your third, fourth wide receiver right now. He's getting those reps. So the Cowboys, honestly, even if they lose the game, if we see the growth, as Patrick was mentioning, from those other guys on the team, even some of the pieces on defense that are being thrust into these roles, that's important growth for the Cowboys. Honestly, if they pull off a win over Detroit with all of these injuries and deficiencies, that would be a miracle. That might be the most impressive win they're going to have all year long. I actually don't expect them to win this game. I expect them to be competitive.
Yeah.
I think it's more about the growth you see from these pieces that you're going to need later on in the season.
Yeah, and it's that bonding as a team of understanding, kind of creating your own culture in this Cowboys team, where it seemed early in the season, the whole conversation early in the season defensively was too many people are trying to play by themselves and not play as a team. Yeah, and when you see a Tolbert and a Turpin and a Dowdle and all those guys starting to step up a little bit, that's where you start to feel the younger guys and the underneath guys feel like, no, we're going to play as a team because you guys are now empowering us to be a part of it, as opposed to the stars being the headliners and we all just kind of are around. If you're going to empower us to be there, we can improve our game. That would be huge for them going forward, because then when you add those pieces back in, if you have the right mindset and everything set up for you to have that right, culture and the right mindset going into the rest of the season, it'd be a really good push forward for this Dallas team. So I think you can gain, even if you lose in this game, you can have a gain in your season.
I agree.
Because it's just beat up. It's just your team's really beat up.
You're just a mash unit right now. And that's the reality that's the NFL. Everybody's starting to get that. The 49ers we just saw, they got another running back banged up. They started that game without their starting corner. The all-pro safety was out. This is the NFL in a nutshell. Once you get to this point in the season, a third through the NFL season, guys start going down, and you got to have depth. And this is building depth for the Cowboys, though. If these guys continue to get better, and then, like Patrick said, once you add in the starters, then you talk about a team with a lot of depth. And I think that the mantra for the Cowboys, because this is how they won that game in Pittsburgh, because when you're going up against Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin likes to win ugly games, and he's really good at it. And that's why nobody is better at winning one-score games than Mike Tomlin in the 5 years in the league. He's great at it. And that was the situation in that Pittsburgh game, where it was a one-score game, and there were a lot of excuses for the Cowboys to lose that game. The weather delay. They had a field goal block. They lost a turnover margin. They were down with 5 minutes left in that game. No Micah, no DeMarcus Lawrence. Marshawn Nealon goes down. Deron Bland's out. Kalen Carson's out. You had Tyler Guyton. Remember, he went down in the game. Yep. Zach Martin left the game. It was one of those games you're like,
no Brandon
Cowboys
Cooks.
Going to use this as an excuse. What is that?
No Brandon Cooks in that game.
No Brandon Cooks. Yeah, I forgot. It was a game where it was like 8 or 9 reasonable excuses as to why the Cowboys could have lost. And it was a no excuses performance. Like, no, we got to find a way to win it. And I hope that is their mantra now. No excuses. No excuses good enough and justifies us, losing that game and not playing our best football. And I haven't seen a game like that from the Cowboys in a while. And I'm hoping that's what we see again. No excuses. Just go out there.
Yeah.
Go find a way to win it.
I like that because, I can't remember what they had a slogan this year. I know last year was that Carpe, whatever, seize everything.
Oh, Carpe Diem.
It wasn't Carpe Diem. It was Carpe something.
Carpe something else. Seize something else.
Yeah, but it was seize everything was the slogan. And they had it. It's all this grandiose kind of thing. But I'm like, you're right. Yours is better. Just no excuses, man. Everybody go out there. You're in the NFL. Go play football. And if you change that mindset of the Cowboys team to not go for the guy who's fourth on the depth chart to act like he's still Micah Parsons, and be like, I'm a Dallas Cowboy. Like, nobody knows who you are. Go play football. I don't care. I don't care that Jerry tells you that star makes you famous. I don't care. Go play football and you'll earn it. Eventually you'll get there. But I think you nailed it on the head. It felt like a no excuses team last week. And if you see that against the Lions too, that'd be really promising going forward.
Yeah.
As you go into a bye week, you start to get it together because that coming out of the bye week is San Francisco. And that one psychologically for the Cowboys, for the Cowboys fan base, for a lot of these guys who just have never been able to get over that hump, even if Christian McCaffrey's not back and they're beat up in San Francisco, kick the dog while they're down, man. You gotta. That's
the test.
If you can go out and get that win, that the Detroit loss doesn't matter at all at that point.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's the test. And even though, your 49ers are down, that's still the test for the Cowboys because they can't seem to vanquish the 49ers as an organization. They have trouble exercising that demon. All right, good stuff there. Oh, and something else to keep in mind. I know the Cowboys, they're going to be, they're going to be shorthanded here and undermanned in this matchup. But Dak has had a lot of success versus Detroit. I want to say he's 11 touchdown passes against the Lions, are the most for Prescott against any non-NFC East opponent. So he has a lot of success. Obviously, Mike McCarthy has had a ton of success versus the Detroit Lions when he was the head coach of the Packers. Even Mike Zimmer, when he was head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, he had a lot of success versus the Detroit Lions. But these are not Yo Mama's Detroit Lions. These are very different. These ain't even the Rod Babers Detroit Lions that I played on. Very different Detroit Lions squad. Speaking of, their offense is one of the most creative and innovative. And this is where the Cowboys, Mike Zimmer, probably needs to come up with some baked in adjustments to all of the motion. They're a top 5 motion unit in the NFL. I mean, if you go look at it, they're probably, my numbers that I looked at, they're 7th in motion at the snap rate, and they're top 5 in pre-snap motion rate. So they move around their weapons a lot. The Cowboys, unfortunately, they are one of the worst teams. Actually, they are the worst team at defending passes with pre-snap motion. They're allowing 9.8 yards per attempt on pass plays that involve pre-snap motion. That is the worst number in the league this year. Remember, we played the audio of Mike Zimmer being asked what modern offensive concepts give you the most problems, and he said pre-snap motions and shifts, right? Well, welcome to your nightmare, because the Detroit Lions, they do it at a top 5 rate. And Sam Laporta has been sent in motion damn near 38% of the time. That is the highest rate for tight ends, 6th highest rate overall among skill position guys. So Cowboys better have a plan for how to defend him. Because remember, the Giants, when they got Malik Neighbors, those 12 receptions for 115 yards, remember 10 of those 15 targets came when he was the target on a play when he was in motion. All right. So 9 of his receptions came on 10 targets to motion. They saw that. I'm sure Detroit saw that, and they're going to use the same formula with with Laporta. So Cowboys, have a plan for it. Figure that out. That's something else that you got to throw out there. Also, since we're talking about the Cowboys, can we play this audio of David Montgomery and him basically claiming he and Jahmyr Gibbs now have a new nickname? They got a new duo nickname, and apparently if you played video games back in the day, you would get the reference. If not, then you maybe right over your head, maybe the reference is lost on you. But here is David Montgomery talking about he and Jahmyr Gibbs, and hopefully the Cowboys, they can put a kibosh on this celebratory new duo.
Describe to me the dynamic between you and Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, that's my guy. That's the guy. I knew he was special before he got here. So I think we got a new name going around. I think it's Sonic and Knuckles, and I happen to be Knuckles, which is cool. I like that one. Me and Jahmyr, we go hand in hand. And I think like a lot of people kind of see it in one light, like Jameer is a guy who can just do this kind of skill, and I'm a guy that just does this kind of skill. But like anybody who really watches, like they see like I can move a lot better than people think that I really can. Like I'm strong and I'm powerful, but like I'm actually pretty shifty too. And Jameer, like he's fast, he's shifty, but like he's strong too. Yeah, we can do anything as long as we keep each other accountable.
All right, Cowboys going to figure out a way to deal with that shifty duo, Sonic and Knuckles, as they call them.
Yes, thanks. By the way, thanks to the texters earlier who pointed out that Tails is still exists, is still around, but Knuckles is the more powerful.
Oh,
Tails could fly. Knuckles was the power guy. Sonic's a fast guy. That's
why they got the combo, yes, the fast. And see, I said, I thank you guys for clearing that up because I actually I was ignorant to that too. Yeah, yes. I wasn't sure about that. All right, let's jump to the Texans side of things. Texans facing the Patriots. And let's play this Bobby Slowick audio really quick because Bobby Slowick pointed out something that I think I was aware of it, but it just hadn't really dawned on me. I hadn't pondered the thought of it, but he pointed out something in this audio that could potentially be problematic for the Texans offense in this matchup against that Patriots defense. Here is Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator and play caller for the Texans.
Extremely sound, very well coached. Jumps off the tape that they're well coached. And, only having watched that side of the ball, my grasp is their defense largely has kept them in a lot of games. That's what it feels like as I'm watching the tape. They've been on the field a lot. They found a way to still keep opponents scoring down a good amount. And I think that goes to how well coached they are, how committed they are to what they play. And they're very multiple. They could have the same personnel on the field, but they line up in like 5, 6, 7 different ways. That creates issues for us in a lot of different manners that, we have to make sure we iron out during the week so that when we get in the game, everyone knows what's going on. We know what to do. It's from a similar tree of Minnesota and Flores. How they call it is obviously a little different, but they're very, very technically sound, and they got some good players really at every level that do some things very well.
Yeah, the last part there is important that, Brian Flores is from that Belichick coaching tree. Jared Mayo is from that Belichick coaching tree. So essentially these systems are cousins. I mean, they're related. And they could potentially replicate some of the things that Brian Flores was able to do against the Texans. They do have a top 10 scoring defense. So it is still a good defense. Their offense is inept. That's why they're bringing in Drake May for Jacoby Brissett, because it was one of the worst passing offenses and one of the worst offenses in the league. But that's interesting. And Gerard Mayo is a good defensive mind. So keep that out there, that they may be trying to do some of the same things that Brian Flores did. And hopefully the Texans have some better answers and solutions for that, because Bobby Slowick just mentioned it. So if they come out and do some of the same things Minnesota did and they have success, I'm going to be a little upset. Now, the reason they may have success is because Texans had Nico Collins with Minnesota Vikings. They won't have Nico Collins. And that's a big part of their success in critical moments, like third down and red zone. Their leading red zone and third down target is Nico Collins, and you're going to lose him for the next 4 weeks. So, Patrick, one of my main concerns is who steps up in those big moments. Is it always Stephon Diggs? And if Stephon Diggs is taken away, at least by schematics and by the defense, could Tank Dell step up and make plays? Because right now he hasn't really shown the ability to do that. He has 1 target on a post route, 1 target on a crossing route, 0 targets on go routes this year. His target depth has dropped from 15 yards to 11 yards. Last year, guys, he led the entire NFL in average separation score. And now he's dropped to 30th in average separation score. And something's going on with Tank Dell, and it's going to be a big week to determine whether he can, take his game to the next level, because they're going to need it over the next month in terms of getting the passing game on track, or keeping it on track, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be huge if he can get back, because he had that rapport with CJ last year. I just don't know if he's been able to figure out how to be a number 3 wide receiver and how that works in this offense. And he's been a little banged up this season, but he was the number 2 last year. And so now he gets to go back to being that number 2. Does that an easier fall? Is he, fully recovered from the injury, from the new injuries, from the shooting over the offseason? There's been a lot of things that happened. That'll be a big one to question. And then if Joe Mixon comes back, he practiced for the first time since his injury. He practiced. When he comes back, is how many snaps does he play? Does Damian Pierce come back? Where does he fit in? Ogunbowale, he had 15 carries and 6 receptions last game.
Yeah,
so
he was productive.
he's productive in the passing game, not productive at all in the run game.
Yeah,
he had 15 carries for 30 yards. So
he had a higher target share than Tank Dell.
he had the most targets. He had the second most targets. He was behind Diggs.
Yeah.
So because you look at Dalton Schultz was only at 6. Schultz is another guy that you want to have in those third down and red zone areas as well. As you want to have Dalton Schultz in those. He just hasn't been as short-handed this season as you'd like him to be, but he can help fix that up a little bit. But yeah, I'm with you. Tank Dell is going to be a big one. And then what do they do in that running back room when you've kind of had to piecemeal it together for the last couple of weeks, and now you may be getting back 2 running backs?
Yeah.
Who makes the roster, who's playing, who's in there? Are you able to then run, two back sets and run with Mixon and Ogunbowale? And you now have 2 guys that can cut outside, or you still have a fullback who can go out and be in the passing game, but you don't have to use him in the running game as much. I agree with
you. That's a good point.
So I think you can
have they had all 3 of them available at any point this season?
I think Ogunbowale, I think game 1 he just didn't.
Because remember, Damian Pierce wasn't available at the beginning, right? Well, he was dealing with some injuries, right? Early on.
I think he was available, but maybe he wasn't even available week 1.
No, you might be right. I don't know if they've had all 3 of them at one time available, and this may be the first time.
Yeah, and that's the one with Dari that he just hasn't. They didn't expect to have to use him. He's basically a fullback. They wanted to have him as a fullback.
That'd be great if they can use, because he basically can be both, and you can use your 2 back sets with Dari there and whoever else.
I think they kind of wanted to put him in this use check kind of fullback, but use him as a guy, and then they realized he was better in the passing game as a running back. So you say, okay, maybe we can have him come out, but that opens up a lot more things and gives you that short yardage underneath throws that do not let you fall into 3rd and 12s and 3rd and 17s. And these ridiculous third downs that the Texans keep getting themselves into.
Yeah, to that point right now, at least in the last 4 weeks, I should say, the Texans currently average 9.3 yards to go on third downs. That is dead last in the NFL, more than 2 yards longer than the NFL average. And what is most disturbing about the Texans' early down runs, their success rate on early down running back runs is 23%. Of course, that's last in the NFL. But not only that, if you look at by the way, the NFL average weeks 2 through 5 is 41.6. So that's the NFL average on success rate on running back runs. And the Texans are at 23%. That 23% would rank among the 5 worst running games for an offense since 2012. Guys, 64% of their runs to running backs, their handoffs to running backs, and the running back ends up being hit before he hits the line of scrimmage. Hit behind the line of scrimmage on 64% of the runs. That's 2 out of 3. So their early down run game it's in trouble. And Joe Mixon can help them resolve a lot of issues, because it didn't look like that in week 1. Week 1 was a totally different story. All right, so Texans are hoping they get back Joe Mixon, or they get back Damian Pierce, and maybe the running game gets a little boost and some juice from that. All right, that's your Texans and Cowboys breakdown. We come back. We'll talk about some of the big college football games of the weekend. You got I'll drop you some nuggets about some of the other big college football matchups. And we got to talk about AD Mitchell's ASS, and it's not what you're thinking. Once again, it's a big topic of conversation. It has been all season long. He's got the best ASS in the league, and the man can't catch a break. Right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right. Welcome back to the Rodcast. And I don't have a ton of time because I want to hit some college football nuggets here. So I'll try to be quick about this. Really quick, let's talk about A.D. Mitchell's ASS. I've been obsessed with this stat. You guys know it is the average separation score. And they do a great job of kind of keeping up with the win rates for individual receivers. And based on the ASS rankings right now, A.D. Mitchell has the highest ASS in the NFL right now, based on fantasy points data. Jordan Addison is second, Brandon Ayuk is third, Keenan Allen fourth, Jamison Williams is fifth. And so this has been the growing, narrative is that A.D. Mitchell has a lot of separation, but Anthony Richardson just can't give him the football because he's not an accurate quarterback. Well, now some of the negative narrative is starting to affect A.D. Mitchell. From everybody saying, man, he's getting a lot of separation and they just can't give him the football. So now people are saying that one of the reasons they won't give him the football maybe because Anthony Richardson doesn't have great chemistry with him, and maybe it's something that they have to cultivate over time. Either way, here's Reggie Wayne, who is the wide receiver coach for the Colts, trying to clear the air about the ASS of one A.D. Mitchell.
Reg, what's your message to AD right now? You feel like he needs to finish plays a little better?
Just keep playing football. He's learning to be a professional. So just keep playing ball. Stay away from you guys.
He does. He has shown his talent because he's winning on these routes a lot, right? And so
he's probably got the most separation of anyone in this league. So he's open. We just gotta finish.
What's the next step in finishing for him?
The next step of finishing is the ball in his hand. Just catch the ball and be a football player. I mean, until you have the ball in your hand, there's not much you can do. So. The ball is thrown his way. He's got to finish the route and finish the catch and finish the run, So he's got to make sure he does his part and everything else take care of itself.
Reggie, do you think he shied away from contact at all, catching the ball?
No, he'd be good.
Because they mentioned on the broadcast, which you can't get hung up on, the alligator arms. Once you get that reputation, isn't it tough?
No, they say the same thing about me. That's why on Monday nights and Sunday nights, I don't listen to the games with the volume up. I call the game myself.
Did you see anything at Texas about the lack of finishing plays?
We should have watched it together. He was a player. He's a player now. That's why we drafted him. We got a steal in the draft. I mean, just keep watching.
All right. We've heard from the OC, the receiver coach. Everybody loves him. Like the organization loves him. Remember, even from the get-go, the general manager, remember how adamant he was about some of the pre-draft rumors. There was a bunch of BS, and they loved A.D. Mitchell. So the organization loves him, and he is killing it in terms of average separation score. Nobody in the NFL is better at creating separation at the wide receiver position. And yet he's got 6 catches on the season, 6 receptions on 20 targets for 70 yards. Man, yeah, tough times. Keep your head up, AD.
Yeah, it does feel like they're in the room and they're like, well, it's got to be somebody's fault, right?
Yeah, it's like, is it the OC? Is it the quarterback? Yeah, I think it's Anthony Richardson's fault, and they can't say that, and nobody wants to say
Anthony Richardson hasn't played the last 2 weeks, and Joe Flacco ain't throwing him the football.
That's true too. Yeah, you're right. Joe Flacco's a veteran,
and that's
from the pocket.
Yeah, and that's what they're hinting a little bit there of maybe he's running these routes and getting wide open, but they're not exactly where the route's supposed to be, or that he's not going to get the ball, even though they're missing with these throws. But hey, man, we get it. The quarterback's going to miss. You got to go get the ball. You can't just keep running your route. I don't know what it is. All those seem like it's not necessarily fully AD's problem, but it is because he's on the Colts.
Yeah, exactly. I say it's your problem because it's hurting your productivity and hurting your name. So yeah, it is ultimately his problem. All right, let's get to a couple of nuggets about the big matchups this weekend. Of course, we've talked a ton about Texas, Oklahoma, but you got 2 other ranked matchups. The biggest, probably the biggest matchup, and at least the most notable, will be Oregon versus Ohio State. That is a doozy of a matchup. And one thing I'll throw out there about Oregon, because Oregon's offense just hasn't been clicking like they thought. Remember Texas red zone issues last year? Oregon's got some of those right this year. Their 81% red zone conversion rate, 94th in college football. Like, how does a team with that much talent end up 94th overall in red zone conversion rate? And how about this? Dylan Gabriel's got 3 interceptions. All have been in the red zone this year. He is tied for the most interceptions in the red zone of any quarterback in the FBS this season. Isn't that weird? That's weird. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Ohio State's been playing well, but, and Ohio State, they beat everybody except for Michigan lately. And I don't know. I'm not picking against Ohio State here. I'll take Ohio State, even though I know this is a big game for Oregon. They've been inconsistent so far this year. Ohio State's won his first 5 games by at least 28 points. Won each of his first 5 games, by at least 28 points, which has never happened in school history. I'll go with Ohio State on this one.
I think Oregon's looked pretty good, except for that Boise State game, which is partially because I don't think they were they were somewhat underestimating the fact that they may have the best running back in the last 30, 40 years of college football. So, that maybe I think they're a good team, but I'm going to give it to Ohio State simply because I haven't seen this Oregon team do it yet.
Yeah.
This is a really big game for them to show that they are that elite team in the Big Ten, and they're the guys who are going to run it now. So if Ohio State wins it, then Ohio State, all you have to do is beat a very down Michigan team that has no offense, and they've got their ticket sealed, basically.
They're definitely gonna beat them this year. Right? Gonna beat them this year.
If they don't,
if they don't do it this year, fire Ryan Day. Seriously, fire.
100%.
They don't do it this year.
Because they're not gonna be like, well, Texas beat them, and everybody else, and Washington beat them again.
Yeah, no doubt. This is the year. And Chip Kelly, remember, used to be the head coach at Oregon. So for him, I'm sure there's a little, added incentive for him too. So I'll take Ohio State in this one. Ohio State and Texas feel like they're on some kind of a collision course too right now.
Yeah.
Feels like, right? It seems like there's a separation between who's playing the best football in college football right now, and those two teams are definitely in the conversation. Also, it's the first time since 2014 that basically you get I think Auburn was a 2.5-point favorite at number 3 Mississippi State, that a road team is favored in a top 3 matchup. That usually doesn't happen, that a road team is favored in a top 3 matchup. By the way, 11 of the last 17 regular season top 3 matchups have been decided by double digits. Isn't that somehow strange?
Yeah. And
snaps a 32-game home streak of Oregon being favored at home. First time in 32 games.
We're supposed to get top 5 matchups 2 weeks in a row, but Vanderbilt and Arkansas had something to say about that. So that Alabama-Tennessee matchup lost a little luster.
Yeah, you're right about that.
But that's still a pretty decent matchup, because now whoever loses is pretty much out of the SEC championship picture.
Oh yeah, still got a lot on the line. Speaking of the SEC title picture, LSU is a big game versus Ole Miss.
Yeah,
that's a big matchup too. I would say this about. It's hard to take Ole Miss seriously sometimes, because I think of Lane Kiffin, and they are kind of an extension of Lane Kiffin. And I don't take Lane Kiffin seriously enough, even though I know he's a good coach and a great offensive mind. It's hard to take Lane Kiffin seriously, right? LSU has won 7 of its last 9 games as a home dog against teams not named Alabama. So you get LSU as a home dog, usually you get the best out of LSU. So that would be interesting. But LSU, I'm really concerned about their defense. LSU, how about this? They've given up 35 big plays. That's 10+ yard rushes and 20+ yard receptions this season. And conversely, Ole Miss leads the country in big plays generated. They got 83 big plays that they've generated on offense, 9 more than the next best team. I almost feel like Ole Miss has got too much firepower offensively for LSU in this game.
And LSU hasn't been tested super hard yet this year. And they did. USC was the best game they played, and they lost that one. And they have a hell of a schedule coming up. They play Ole Miss, then Arkansas, then A&M, then Alabama. They still got Oklahoma on their schedule. That's
LSU's next 4 games.
So they play Ole Miss, Arkansas, A&M, Alabama, Florida, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma. That's the rest of their schedule.
Man, yeah. Oklahoma's like that's your light. That's the light team.
Vandy's still your light team. I know Vandy just won, but Vandy's still your light team. Maybe Florida is. Florida's your light team. Does
Vandy play Oklahoma?
No, because we don't play the same teams, remember?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
We're playing
You don't play
completely
the
two
same
different
teams. Okay,
teams. So
yeah.
anyone we play, they don't
Oh,
play.
Man. I don't know. I just wonder who's going to be at the bottom of the SEC when it's all said and done. Because, like I said, there aren't a lot of pushovers in the SEC anymore. Mississippi State's probably going to be your bottom dweller in the SEC.
Because Mississippi State,
who's going to be down there?
Yeah, they got some other tough games coming up. I think they play like Alabama and Georgia.
It don't. Ooh, that's gonna be ugly. All right, there you go. Some nuggets about the big games coming up this weekend. We come back. We'll play Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify and recall who said that. We'll play that when we come back right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a 5-1-2 Friday edition of the Rodcast, and that's when Patrick plays jams from local bands and artists, very talented human beings that you have a chance to catch live right here in the ATX. Who are we jamming right now, Patrick?
This is Nick Adamo. He is playing Sunday at the Far Out Lounge.
Nice. I like that groove. There's a feel good groove there. Also, the topic of the day can make you feel good if you like it. You can go check it out at the Horn ATX on X. Patrick simply wants to know how many points will Texas score against the Sooners. 0 to 10 points, 11 to 20 points, 21 to 30 points, or 31 or more points. 71% of you who voted said Longhorns will score at least 31 poins.
Oh, getting cocky. It's making the worry warts even more worried. Everybody else feels good.
You're right. I'll admit we are an arrogant fan base right now. We are just straight up.
That
arrogant.
hype train is just rolling.
It is
loud.
We haven't felt this good about our team in a long time, and we haven't looked across from the Sooners, looked across at the Sooners and seen them in this bad a shape in a very long time.
It's been a minute.
Offensively. Yeah. So it's been a minute since we've been this high and they've been this low. I think that's what's going on. All right. Let's play some of Who Said That before we get out of here. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify who said that.
Fellow high draft pick who started as a rookie, is there any advice you would give someone in that situation?
Not this week. But no, I'm rooting him on. I hope he does good, not against us, but in his future.
I know that voice. That's CJ Stroud. I'm sort of being asked about Drake May, who he says, by the way, before the draft, he said anyway, that he believed Drake May was the most pro ready of the quarterbacks coming out.
So he's got a lot of arm talent, got a lot of different things he can use. And man, he's used to running behind a bad O-line because North Carolina hasn't had no line really in
that's true
a little bit.
He actually had the most scrambles for any quarterback in the last 10 years in college football. Drake May.
He's ready. He's ready. Hey, he's gonna need it.
He's going to need it, because the Patriots, I think, have the highest pressure rate allowed in the NFL. So young Drake May is going to be running for his life. Hopefully he's running for his life. If not, then the Texans got some issues. Thanks, Patrick, for everything you do, brother. You are the real MVP. Thank you guys out there for watching and for listening. Remember, the revolution will not be televised, but of course, we'll be talking about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Everybody have a great weekend. If you're on the road, headed down to Dallas, please be safe on that road. And yes, down in Oklahoma, get down there, get with them Oklahoma Spoon fans, get around friendly confines or get around your people. And until next time, hook 'em horns and peace, and OU still sucks.